Hi guys, I hope you're all doing good and I hope you're ready for this detailed discussion on ethics, integrity and aptitude. Before we start off, just a few pointers that I wanted to bring to your notice. The first is, by looking at this video, you will truly understand how to approach a subject called ethics. Second, nowhere are they discussing ethics questions the way I have discussed here. You will see this once you see till the end of the video. So please, I request you to see till the end of the video to understand the difference of interpretation of ethics questions in my discussions compared to all the other discussions. I am not telling that I am the best. I am just telling that there is a knack to see it. There is a lot of scope to look at the questions and deduce a lot of hints from the question. This is what we do. And hence, I request each and every one of you who really want to learn ethics to make sure that you see this till the end of the video. The third point that I want to bring to the notice is there are a lot of changes made in the ethics paper this time. The orientation has changed. So if you want to learn the orientation, please look at this video. And the last one is there are subtle changes that are made between the statements and the question given in the ethics paper. So what is the statement, what is the question, how they are divergent in the way they are asking the question. These are few things that you should always notice in the question paper that has been given this time in Mains 2024. All in all, if you want to really learn how to approach ethics, how to prepare for ethics paper, how to bring that ethical vocabulary in your answer writing, and moreover, how to actually get good marks in ethics, please look at this video. This is my humble request because we have worked too hard. We have worked too hard to create this video for you people, and nowhere is such way of analysis available in the market. So I request each and every one of you to please see the video till the end and then please comment what was your take on this video. And one very humble request to each and every one of my viewers is please like, share and subscribe, and please share this with as many people as possible because that is the only way that will incentivize us to do such qualitative analysis to you people on a regular basis. So this is my request. So I hope you will enjoy this video, and moreover, I hope you learn a lot from this video. So I request you people again to watch this video till the end because this is an analysis that you cannot find like any other. So I hope you'll enjoy it, guys. Let's start off then. Hi guys, welcome to the detailed analysis of the ethics, integrity and aptitude paper, the GS4 Mains 2024 paper. So let us first analyze how the questions have come in this year. Let us also try to seek what UPSC is thinking about this paper and how exactly it wants us to prepare. So that is the most important takeaway in the first few minutes that we'll be analyzing the trend, the questions and how to orient ourselves for the next ethics paper in 2025. So it is very crucial for all those aspirants who are aspiring to write the Mains 2025 to watch this video very much in detail. Now, this video will contain a lot of specificities that you will not see in any discussions outside because there the perception of ethics paper is very different from what the questions are coming. So please make sure that you see the entire video and understand the difference between this session and all the other sessions. Okay, so with that, let us get on to it right away. So what were the key takeaways? If you look at the Mains 2024 GS4 paper, there has been a lot of changes that has happened in the question paper. The first change that we can see in the question paper is there is more questions that has come on applied ethics. 4 questions have come on applied ethics. The 4 questions are artificial intelligence. There is one question on climate change. There is one question on Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, and there is one question on mission Karmayogi. Okay, so these 4 questions or these 4 topics points out what is going to be the next trend of UPSC's GS4 paper. Okay, so this is the first paradigm shift. Usually there used to be one question or maximum 2 questions that had applied ethics, but now there is more focus on applied ethics as a part of your preparation. So this is one thing that you should keep in your mind. The second aspect of the 2024 paper is there is more emphasis. There is more emphasis on public service values as well as there is more emphasis on public service values as well as ethics in public administration. Ethics in public administration. So this is where more of the emphasis is coming from. Now this aspect, the second point, this has been happening from the last 3 years. If you take the ethics paper of the last 3 years, most of the questions are focused on the ethics in public administration. So this is something that we had predicted. We also have known this is how it is continued. So what I'm trying to tell is, whenever the change happens, it is going to continue for a few years. So the focus on ethics in public administration happened a few years back, and this is it has continued till today. And now one more change that they have introduced is the start of applied ethics. The reason why they have started this is they're going to put you in different context and see how you can develop the ethical perspective for that specialized realm, and that is what makes it interesting. So these are the two things that you should have very much in your mind. The third aspect is the basics of ethics. The basics of ethics is still very, very important, because it is the basics of ethics that will give you the ethical vocabulary. And without the ethical vocabulary, you will not be able to write an ethical answer. So why is basics of ethics very important is, most of the questions that are coming are very generic in nature. Okay, so there is very high scope for you to write a GS answer. Most of the students, I have seen the discussions of many institutes, and I have seen also the students' model answers, as well as most of the students have told me the answers. For example, there is a question that is asked on gender equality. So basically they are asking on the question is asking on the challenges. The question is about the challenges of women in public service. So the question is asking on challenges on women in public service. Now when they say challenges of women in public service, in GS3 you can write as a different challenge, in GS2 you can write as a different challenge, in GS1 you can write as a different challenge, but in ethics you have to bring the ethical consideration or the ethical point of view. This is where most of the discussions, what I'm seeing, or most of the students who are sending me the model answers, have written it in a very general studies manner. So the basics of ethics is not only important for you to just learn and by heart, but you have to use the ethical vocabulary to write the answer. That is what makes it ethical. So I hope you understand the importance of it, and how to use the ethical vocabulary in your answer is what is today's discussion all about. I am trying to make an elaborative video to give you the smartness, to give you the orientation, as well as to give you the ethical vocabulary and how to apply the vocabulary to make the answer look ethical. You cannot write the answers just like GS in this particular paper. You have to bring that ethical consideration and the ethical point of view, otherwise your answers will not stand out. I am not telling that you will not get marks. You will end up in that bracket of average marks, whereas the topper will have plus 20 marks more than you, and you will start thinking, what is wrong with me? Because you would have completed the paper, you would have written the paper very well according to your point of view, but what you will miss out there is the ethical vocabulary and the ethical consideration of the issues. And most of the questions that is asked, apart from the ethics in public administration and applied ethics, most of the question that is asked is beautifully asking about the contemporary relevance. You take the international relations, there is one question. You take the concept of justice as injustice, how this justice as injustice is changing in the contextual manner, and that is again bringing more of the contemporary relevance. Then the women in civil services, that is again asking you the contemporary relevance. So most of the questions that are coming in ethics, apart from the applied ethics also, is basically asking about the contemporary relevance. When that is the case, what happens is there is more proclination for most of the students to write that general studies knowledge of the contemporary things that are happening. But that should not happen like that. The main aspect is how to use that contemporary relevance, but write the ethical consideration of those contemporary issues is the challenge. And that is where the person who has matured in ethics answer writing will get a very good marks. And if you want to develop that maturity, if you want to develop that orientation and focus, please look to the complete aspect of this video. From the first question to the last question, I have taken a lot of efforts to do it, and I want you to learn from this. So that is the third takeaway. Okay. The fourth one, coming to the case studies. The case studies has been normal. Okay. Obviously, you will have 6 case studies. So in the 6 case studies, 3 are lengthy, and 3 are short. So it is a test of time. Basically, they are trying to test in the initial first 3 case studies are lengthy, and the next 3 case studies are very short. So what you should not do is, you should not allot more time for lengthy case studies and you should not allot less time for the small case studies. You have to allot equal time for every case study. That is how you have to make sure that you ace the case studies part. However, overall, talking about the case studies, there is a norm. What usually will come, the trends, the same trend as repeated. There is one question where you are put as a police officer. There is one question where you are put as a CEO. There is one question where you are put as a professional in a health hospital where you are facing conflict of interest. So these are some things that are normal in every year's case studies. So in case studies, we are not seeing any difference. Okay. And the last one, the last change that I observed in this particular paper is they are asking divergent narratives. They are asking divergent narratives in the question itself. This has happened for the first time. They're asking divergent narratives in the question itself. For example, the question has 2 parts. Okay, if you take the question has 2 parts. On one part, they say Indian culture always promotes gender equality. And on the other side, the second part, they say that women in public service, what are the challenges faced? Okay, now this question is very, very beautifully given to show that there is divergence within the question. Are you able to identify the divergence? Are you able to identify the dichotomy and address the dichotomy appropriately? Most of the people would have neglected it because the first part that is given in the question is a statement. So what most people do, they will just read the statement and then they will go to the next part that is actually the question. So what they will miss out is, usually the statement will set the context for the question that is going to come. This is the usual norm. But this is the first time where UPSC is giving a context in a different way and then asking the question in a completely different way. This is very, very interesting, but it is going to continue. So what is very important is you should have an eye on such questions. That is another change that I have observed in the ethics paper. So these were the interesting observations that I did from the ethics paper. Overall, I feel ethics this time will have a score that will be on the lower end. I feel that any score of 100 or 100 plus will be a very, very good score in this ethics. The reason is very simple. There is a lot of secured feeling amongst the mains aspirants that they have done a good job in ethics. The reason is because the questions were either generic or the questions were manageable. But what they are forgetting is these subtle changes that UPSC has done in the questions, which you will know once you finish the entire video. I am not telling this to promote. You will understand yourself the importance of the video once you finish all the 6 parts of the question. Please make sure that you do it and please comment in the comment section whether I am genuinely telling it or I am trying to do it as a marketing strategy. Okay, we'll put it in the comment section. That is the challenge that I'm going to give you. But if you're really sincere enough, if you really want to learn the ethics paper, please make sure that you go ahead and see all the questions that I'm going to discuss. I am going to dissect all the questions. I'm going to show how UPSC will provide hints in the question. I'm also going to make you learn how to use that hints to structure your answer. And also the most aspect or the most difficult aspect that students feel is the quotes. Usually there will be 3 quotes, 3A, 3B and 3C. Okay, this again there is no change, the same pattern has continued, but how to write an ethical answer in quote is a very, very interesting feature. It is a very interesting skill. Again, I have developed my own style of writing it. I have done it in a very elaborative way. So if you are serious enough, look at these quotes also. I have given you a hint of how to actually create a very good answer from the quote that is given. And I have also pointed out the most common mistakes that are made by the students, especially in answering these quotes. Okay, so now I have given you the general overview of what ethics paper is all about. Now let us go question by question and just identify how the questions have been asked. Okay, and how you should have answered the question. Okay, let us go and analyze the question wise analysis of Mains 2024 GS paper. Okay, now let us look at the section A of the paper, the questions or the ethics, the theory part. Let us look at the theory part. There are 13 questions that comes. Okay, so every question will have 2 subparts. For example, 1A, 1B. In this way, there will be two subparts, except the third question. The third question will usually have three subparts, 3A, 3B and 3C. These are the codes. Apart from this, the question goes from 1A to 6B. So entirely, there will be 130 marks. That is, you will have the 10 markers of 130 marks, that is 13 questions that you have to handle in the section A of ethics paper. So let us look at the questions. As I told you, the first question is AI in administration. How dependable is AI in administration? As I told you, applied ethics. Okay, now I am marking it as moderate because most of the people will write GS answers. They'll write, mimicking of human cognition and problem solving abilities, and they will write more to do with GS3 angles rather than bringing GS4, and that is where the challenge lies. So I'm giving this as a moderate. But as I told you, this is the first question on applied ethics. Okay, the next is they have asked about dimensions of ethics. Again, they have asked very, very smartly two parts in this. Not only should you talk about the dimensions, you should also tell how these dimensions will help individuals as well as organizations. That is again very interesting, because usually what we do when we teach ethics or when we learn ethics, we just read normative ethics, meta ethics, teleological ethics, deontological ethics. So we just go on just knowing about these different dimensions, but we have never applied the dimension in understanding how it helps individuals or organizations. So again, a very interesting question, but it is an easy question because it is coming from conventional sources and it is basics, the basics of ethics. That's why I'm marking it as easy. Okay, the next, look at this, weapon industries and wars by developed countries. Obviously, there will always be one question on ethics in international relations. They had asked about the India's stand in the Russia-Ukraine war. They are asking about the weapon industries and the wars by developed countries, how they are continuing the wars and how it helps in their profitability this time. So this is again an interesting question. It is a moderate question, because there is very high scope for students to write the answer like international relations. What you should not forget is you are writing ethics in international relation. So how will you bring that ethical vocabulary is very, very tricky, and hence I am just marking it as moderate. Okay, the next is climate change and ethics. Okay, again this is the second question in applied ethics. I think this is easy, considering that we have seen so much of information on global warming and climate change. I think people can write the ethical dimension. They can write the ethical dimension or the ethical version of this particular answer. So I'm marking it as easy. Okay, the next is the quotes, the three quotes. Very nice quotes they are. The first is the quote on personal identity and personal authenticity. So it is the importance of individuality. This is the first quote given by Swami Vivekananda, a very nice quote. The next is faith and belief. Okay, how these two are very important. How these two are very important in doing great work. That is what is the, again another quote. The next is, it talks about the difference between law and ethics. How ethics is much more broader compared to the law. Okay, again the quotes, as you can see, the two quotes very easy. One that is moderate is how you can assess that particular quote. That is, it is talking about the personal identity, learning from others but maintaining our own personal identity. How you are going to break that and bring different analysis is the challenge. Hence I am marking it as moderate. Now if you want to learn about the quotes, especially the first quote, how to break it and write a proper quote, please make sure that you look at the analysis that I'm going to do, and I'm going to detail in a detailed manner. I'm going to show you how to exactly decipher and write a quote. Okay, so these are the 3A, 3B, 3C. They are on the easier side, so you don't have to worry about it. The fourth question is the concept of just and unjust, 4A. A very interesting question. They have asked how this concept of just and unjust changes contextually. Okay, they say that how it evolves, how it is dynamic, and how it is constantly changing. So that is what the question is. Again, an interesting question. This comes from ethics in public administration. Okay, again a moderate question, because here you have to bring examples. They have explicitly asked for examples, so you have to bring a lot of examples, and that is how the answer will be made more relevant. Okay, the next 4B again is form and substance in rendering justice. See, as you can see, both aspect is talking about justice. So you can see both are coming from ethics in public administration. That is what I told in the beginning. There is a continuing trend of more questions coming from public service values and ethics in public administration. Okay, so here basically the question is easy because it is basically talking about the spirit versus letter of the law. Okay, it is about the intent, the content. That is what is the entire question. The question can be written easily because you people have practiced it many number of times. The next is the conventional question that comes from code of conduct and code of ethics. They have asked again here very nicely, they have told somewhere in between the question they have told code of conduct is in operation and code of ethics is not in operation. They have just put it as a statement somewhere in the middle of the question. Most of the students can neglect that. That is what I am trying to tell you. This is a new thing that UPSC has started where they are leaving hints inside the question that you have to catch and you have to address it. So I hope you have addressed it. If you have not, please look at the discussion. Anyways, this code of conduct and code of ethics is an easy question. It is coming from probity in governance. Okay, again easy because it comes from convention. It is coming from the conventional sources. Everyone would have understood what is code of ethics and code of conduct, so there is nothing new here. Okay, the next is a very interesting question. As I told you, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. So this is something that we have learned in GS2. You have learned in GS2, but no one expected that this will be asked in GS4, and that is what is interesting because they have connected BNS to justice, equality, and impartiality in the Indian cultural ethos. So you have to connect BNS to the Indian cultural ethos. Now this is a very specific question. This is a very specific question. Because the question is very specific, I have marked it as difficult. Now this can come either in probity in governance, or I can also mark it as applied ethics. I can put it in both the terms, applied ethics also or probity in governance. So if I term it as applied ethics, this is the third question on applied ethics. And overall, if you observe from 4A to 5B, can you see all the question comes from public administration and public service values. So that is why I told you that there is a continuing trend. There is a continuing trend of many questions coming from this chunk of the syllabus. So you should be very, very well versed with this part of the syllabus. Gone are the days when they ask you what does happiness mean to you. Gone are the days when they ask you what do you mean by crisis of conscience. Gone are the days they ask you what are the different types of integrity. So these are the days that are gone. Now the concepts are getting more crystallized. The application is more focused rather than the basics of it. So please be careful of how UPSC is evolving in the GS4 Ethics Paper. Okay, so this is about 5A and 5B. Let us look at the last two questions. That is, as you can see, 6A is talking about gender specific challenges faced by female civil services aspirants, or gender specific challenges faced by female civil servants. But as I told you, if you can observe the question, if you can observe this question, the statement and question are divergent. So when the statement and question are divergent, how to write an answer? So I hope you have identified that and I hope you have addressed it. However, we will discuss it in the discussion. I am going to point out how UPSC has very cleverly played a small change to see how observant you are in understanding the statement as well as the question. Very nicely played. This is a very good question. Again, I'm marking it easy because obviously you would have practiced challenges of women in Indian society. Obviously you can put the same aspect into the context of public service and assess how women in public service can face such challenges. So again, easy question. I'm marking it as easy. Okay. The next is 6B. So 6B is Mission Karmayogi. Again, you can mark it in probity in governance also, or you can also say it as applied ethics. Either ways, applied ethics or probity in governance, what you should know is more questions are going to come from that part of the syllabus which has ethics in public administration and probity in governance. And applied ethics is something that they are looking forward to, so more questions is going to come from that. That is the takeaway here. Again, I am marking this as difficult. The reason why I am marking it as difficult is they have asked how Mission Karmayogi will help in delivery of services to grassroots. They have also asked how Mission Karmayogi will help improve productive efficiency. See, they have asked two aspects about a program. Now, usually what happens when students go with the knowledge of Mission Karmayogi, they go with a GS2 knowledge. Okay, so they will not have very high number of points. That is, you will not have 5 to 6 or 7, 8 points about Mission Karmayogi. You will maximum have 2 or 3 points. And basically one common point that we will have is Mission Karmayogi is basically in charge of capacity building of the public servants. It involves continuous and comprehensive learning. It enhances the functional role. It improves the domain expertise. It helps in personal development. These are the superficial points that we will know. So from that, how to write the answer, I have taught you in the discussion. Okay, obviously I can research, write down the points and then tell you like I know, I have not done that. Obviously I have done that also, but before doing that, I have also told that this is how you have to address the question when the questions are very specific. When the questions are specific, how to write an answer, I have also told that, and then gone ahead and written the ideal answer also. That ideal answer I have researched and written, but I have also addressed the issue that when in an exam hall, you are faced with a question that you don't have much content, how to write an answer, that is what I have addressed in this Mission Karmayogi. So again, this, if you take it as applied ethics, it becomes the 4th question. If you take as probity in governance, you can see that major chunk of the questions are coming from probity in governance. So basically you have seen that there are 2 difficult questions and 2 moderate questions. Okay, so out of the 13 questions, you have 4 that are moderate or difficult, and you're seeing that shift towards applied ethics. So overall, as I told you, it can be 100 plus, can be the safe score in ethics. This is what is my prediction. So we have looked at the questions. Now let us look at a brief preview of how the case studies have come in this year's GS4 Ethics paper. The next is the GS4 case study analysis. As you know, you will always have 6 case studies, and 6 case studies will be 6 into 20 marks, that is 120 marks. Okay, in case studies, the finishing the case studies will always be a challenge, and many students have left either 1 question in theory or 1 question in case study. They have done this. This is a blunder. You should never do this. That shows that you cannot manage time. That actually should not be done. But anyways, if it is done, it is fine. Don't worry too much about it. It is done and dusted. Let us wait for the results. But overall, that is the practice that most of the students should do who are going to prepare for the mains 2025. This is my takeaway. So overall, in the case study, what they have done is, in the initial 1, 2 and 3, that is, if you take the first, second and third case study, the case studies are purposely lengthy. So they are made purposely lengthy such that when you are reading, it is taking too much time. So by the time you come to the 4th case study, you are running out of time, and that is where you are now going to rush. And when you rush, you are going to make mistakes. When you are going to rush, you are going to overlook the issue that is at stake. So this is something that most of the students will do. That is why ethics is something that you should not rush. Every case study and every question should be allotted time, and you should only use that time to write. If you run out of that time, skip that question and go to the next one. This should be rigidly adhered to if you want to write good answers in ethics and if you want to finish the paper. Finishing the paper itself is the skill in ethics. Because even when most of the students go to mains exam, very less people will come out, will tell that I finished the paper properly. Most of the people, how they would have finished this, they would have rushed through the last 20 minutes, and that would have actually hampered the quality of the questions. That is why always develop the skill of finishing the ethics paper, and if you want to do that, allot the time to that question and case study and make sure that you do it diligently. Don't take more time. So ideally, 1.5 hours should be given for theory, 1.5 hours should be given for case study. Under any circumstances, don't even take 5 minutes extra for theory or case studies respectively. Just make sure that once 1.5 hours is done, move on to the case study if you are done with your theory. Alright, if you are doing case study first, then move on to the theory after you are done with 1.5 hours. Either ways, be very, very rigid in how you are going to manage your time. Otherwise, you will not be able to finish the paper. I hope you understand this. Anyways, as I told you, the only trick or the only thing that UPSC has played here is the lengthy game. The lengthy game is the first 3 case studies are lengthy, the next 3 case studies are very short. So that is one thing. However, what is very important is there is a lot of hints that is given in the case study. That is, if you read the case study, the values and the responsibilities, okay, the values and responsibilities of the actor is explicitly mentioned in the case study itself. Now this used to happen in 1 or 2, but now it is happening in almost all the case studies. That is, when you are reading the case study, there are values that they say, there are responsibilities that they say as an actor what should be done. So they themselves are indicating what should be done, and then they will ask you what are the options available. So there also you should catch exactly what the case study is talking about. Again, very, very interesting, but overall it is going on a conventional term, so there is nothing new about it. So let me just go through what were the case studies. So let us talk about the first case study. The first case study is, it is making, see the first, this is what is the actor. Okay, the actor is you. So basically in a case study, you have to put yourself in that context and think, what is you are action. So what actor are you? That is what is this. Okay, in the first case study, you have to act as a CEO of the company. And being a CEO of the company, how you are going to balance on one side technological advancement, on the other side environmental sustainability. Basically in this case study, what it is telling is, your company is advancing in AI, and because it is advancing in AI, it is consuming a lot of energy, and this consumption of energy is resulting in bad environmental footprint. So how are you going to do it? Your development of company is also important, but conservation of environment is also important, because outside the people are angry about this consumption or over consumption of energy. So you as a CEO, what is your line of thought? How will you balance this? This is what is your first case study. A easy and a straightforward one. And the second one, let us move on to the second one. The second is, you are put as a person called Raman, who is a DG of the state. Okay, and that particular state as, you're a DG of a state. So the particular state as unemployment, many youth are suffering from unemployment, and this is leading to radicalization of the youth by fringe groups. This is leading to radicalization of the youth by fringe groups. So again, what are you going to do about this? How are you going to gather intelligence so that in the future this should not be done? Now, don't forget, many students will start talking about how to reduce unemployment. What they will forget is, you are a DG. Your job is not to reduce unemployment. Your job is not to give employment. Your job is to make sure that the law and order is preserved. Your job is to make sure that such radicalization will not happen. The youth should be cut off from such contact. This is your job. But most of the discussion, what I'm seeing is, they are talking about employment, how a DG can help in employment. This is the problem. All right. So that is the case study 2. Let us move to the case study 3. In case study 3, you are put as Rohit. Rohit is an SP of special operations in a district, and in that district, the problem is there is a Naxalite problem. So basically what has happened, you have raided a village, and when you have raided a village, you have gotten hold of all important, wanted Naxalites. Okay, you have got hold of all important wanted Naxalites. Now, once you have caught all of them, suddenly every woman of the tribal village will come, protest and stand in front of you and demand you to leave them free. So this is the dilemma. So this entire case study is talking about an ethical dilemma. What are you going to do? Are you going to be stern about the capturing of the Naxalites? In that step, you are going to may cause a loss of life. Or are you going to let them free and make sure that no one is armed, but that also will come at a cost of letting go of these wanted Naxalites who can create a problem in the future. So what is it that you are going to do? A very excellent context that they have put to see how well can you balance this. Very, very nice. It shows what is your empathy, compassion, emotional intelligence, and most importantly, your aptitude. Okay, that is a very good case study this is. So again, these are the 3 that are lengthy in nature. The next is 3 very, very simple ones. The next is case study 4 that talks about, you are a person called Sneha. Sneha is the senior manager in a reputed hospital. Now she is in charge of procurement. Okay, and the procurement tender is called, and one of her brother is the one who will apply for the tender. Now her brother is in a very bad position, so it becomes imperative that she gives the order to him. So basically this is asking about conflict of interest. Conflict of interest is a very, very conventional, a case study that usually keeps coming in the exam. It is nothing new. As I told you, this is a very straightforward case study. There is nothing to think about here. You would have practiced a lot of case studies. So this is direct like that itself. The next is case study 5. Okay. The case study 5 says that you are a district collector in a water stressed district. Okay. Now, there are different things happening here. Okay. One, the farmers are protesting. The next, there is no water in the district, and next there is industries. You also have industries. Okay, so basically you have to address three aspects here. One is the farmer protest, the second is addressing the water crisis, and four, the industries cannot be closed. So these are the three things you have to balance. Being a district collector, how are you going to balance this? Okay, how are you going to make sure that the farmers are calmed down? How are you going to stop the protest? How are you going to bring water to the district? And how are you going to make sure that the industries continue running, because it provides a lot of employment? And this is what is an interesting takeaway of this case study. However, it is straightforward. I would say that it is pretty easy. The last case study is you are acting as Dr. Srinivasan, who is a senior scientist in a reputed biotechnological company. And here there is a virus that is running amok, or that virus has become epidemic. So basically you people have found a vaccine for it, and this vaccine has to go through quality testing. Now basically what the company is telling is circumvent the quality testing so that we can leave the vaccine to the market so that it improves our profitability. But what you are telling is it should not be done. The procedure has to be followed because it affects professional integrity or research integrity. Correct? So this is the dilemma. This is again the question of ethical dilemma in professional context. Okay, again a straightforward one. You can deal with it in a very, very straightforward way. So overall, these were the 6 case studies, and these were the takeaways of the case studies. The overall, what is very important in case studies is finishing it. That is what is very important. Okay, most of the students would have taken more time for case studies in the first 3, and last 3 they would have rushed, and in that rush they would have committed a lot of mistakes. This should not happen. So if you have taken care of it, just make sure that you are going to succeed. There is no one stopping it. And if you intend to write next year in Mains 2025, so I've told you how to balance your theory and your case study, and I've also told you how to allot the time. So be very rigid in your practice. If you practice to finish, you will practice to succeed in ethics paper. This I can assure you of. Okay. So overall, the key takeaways of 2024 paper is 1, applied ethics. The questions on applied ethics as started. The second is public administration and public service values, or the chapter that says probity in governance. This has become very, very important. The third is there are statements given in the questions. These statements are very interesting and most of the students are overlooking it. It is necessary that you address the statements, because these statements are either becoming divergent to the question, or these statements are having hints. So if you see the discussions that we are going to do after this takeaway, you are going to understand that the questions either are divergent in what the question is asking, or the statement is giving you hints of how to write the answer. Okay. The fourth one is there are few specific questions that are asked. So specific question becomes very difficult for us to answer. For example, it can be Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, or it can be Mission Karmayogi. These are very, very specific questions where you should have proper points to write a proper answer. This becomes difficult for everyone, so you also don't have to worry. But what is very important is when you are doing your GS2, always have an eye to also bring some ethical standpoint. Try to see if you can bring some ethical standpoint, because those things that you study in GS2 can also come in GS4 from now on. That is another takeaway. The last takeaway is the case studies. The case studies are very tricky in a way that they are made lengthy initially, purposely to make sure that it should become a challenge for you to finish the paper. Okay, so this is the key takeaways of my analysis of what the GS4 ethics paper of Mains 2024 exam has been. Overall, it has been on the moderate side, and I can expect that this time 100 plus will be a very good score in ethics, and those people who have finished the paper, properly are the people who have already won the game even before the game has begun. So this is something that is my analysis of GS4 Ethics Mains 2024 paper. I hope you like this. Now seriously start listening to all the detailed discussion of all the questions that I have done. Every question will have its own way of approaching the problem and then solving the problem. If you can learn that, two things will happen. One, you will understand how to write answers in ethics. The second you will understand is how to study for ethics in the future exams as well. So I hope you love it. I hope you will like it. If you like it, please do like, share and subscribe, because it is one thing that will incentivize us to send such quality materials to you people on a regular basis. I hope you'll love it. Enjoy the discussion, guys. Thank you so much. So this has been the analysis and trend, and I hope you got to know what the UPSC's mind in the future is like. Alright, let's now get on with the analysis of all the questions in detail. Alright guys, so you have understood the pattern of the ethics paper. You have also gotten oriented of how exactly you have to prepare for this ethics paper. These are the two aspects that are very important in your analysis of the previous year questions. Okay, one, it should show you the way of how you are going to prepare, and two, it should also show you the way of what to expect in the coming papers in the future. Okay, so now after understanding the trend analysis and how to prepare for ethics paper, now let us discuss the questions in detail. Okay, many students, I have seen that the many discussions that are even made in the YouTube, the answers that are discussed are more on generic level. There is no ethical vocabulary or there is no ethical dimensions that are there in the discussions. So the reason why the discussion becomes very important is try to always bring the ethical vocabulary, try to always bring the ethical dimensions in your ethics paper. Because the applied part of ethics is increasing. So you are going to see climate change, you are going to see artificial intelligence, you are going to see several policies that they will ask directly in the ethics paper now. So when they ask that, there are very high chances that you can get overwhelmed with the information and start writing a GS answer like GS1 or GS2 or GS3. So this is a very common mistake. So please be very careful when you start off with your answer writing to bring the ethical dimensions as well as ethical vocabulary. Without wasting much time, let us start off with the first question. The first question, that is 1A, is like this. The application of artificial intelligence as a dependable source of input for administrative rational decision making is debatable issue. Critically examine the statement from ethical point of view. Okay, now what is very smart thing to do is read the question carefully. They are giving you keywords to play around with. You can actually play around with the keywords that they give in the question in the ethics question paper. That is the beauty of ethics questions. Most of the people will not teach you this, but here what you should keep in your mind while you are writing the answer is, see, two keywords that they have used. One is dependable and another is rational decision making. Okay, on these two lines itself you can play a lot. How much dependable are artificial intelligence? How much dependability should we develop on artificial intelligence in the context of public administration? See, two dimensions you got. Now, rational decision making. Rational decision making should not be purely objective. In public administration, rational decision making involves the mix of objectivity with empathy. So where is empathy? So you have to talk on that. See, the keywords in the question paper will be very indicative of how you can write your answers, and that is the smart way of writing ethics answer. Okay, again, you should always read the question very carefully. So overall, let us get on with the structuring of the answer. As we usually will do it, we talk in three ways: introduction, body and conclusion. Okay, the body will have the 80% of the weightage, so that is what is very important, and here is where you have to analyze. Okay, and since they are asking you to critically examine, you have to examine it from both the pros as well as the cons perspective. That is, the advantages, disadvantages, the significance, challenges. So this is what is critically analyzed. You have to give both the dimension, both the side of the coin. Okay, so here in this question, if I have to introduce, I will introduce by integrating AI in administration. Okay, how do I introduce in that case? See, I will tell that artificial intelligence can handle large data sets. Artificial intelligence can handle large data sets. It can predict trends, and the next is it can solve complex computational problems. Okay, and administration, especially the public administration, it involves rendering service. It involves rendering services to very high population. Rendering services to very high population. Now this rendering services to very high population requires consistency and it requires efficiency. And by integrating artificial intelligence into administration, we are going to bring the consistency and efficiency. So you have to talk in the introduction these things. Okay, artificial intelligence brings the the power of handling large data sets. Complex computational problems can be solved easily, which can help in public administration where the services have to be rendered to large populations effectively and consistently. See, this is how you have to introduce. Your introduction is done. Now, here most of the students, what they do, they give the science and technology dimension of introduction, where they start defining artificial intelligence is the technology that tries to mimic human cognition and human problem solving. So this is also fine, but as I told you, ethics should always have ethical vocabulary. Try to bring in empathy, welfare, global good, common good, integrity. These are the things that should usually keep resonating in your answers rather than GS languages. Okay, all right. So this became the introduction. Let us go to the two different dimensions. The first dimension is, one, is it dependable source of input? The second dimension is, how much dependable can we make it? Okay, so let me talk about the first dimension. Now, is it dependable? Is it dependable compared to, or is it dependable in making rational decision making? Okay, so in this dimension, if I have to talk about this dimension, the first aspect that I will be talking about is accountability. Now see, public office, whatever decisions that we make in the public office, these decisions will have large impact on the public. Whatever decisions that we make in public administration will have a large impact on the public. Now, if I integrate artificial intelligence into decision making, then whatever impact that is there on, that happens on the people, if it is negative or if it is unintended consequence, then who is going to stay accountable? So that is the first major dependability paradox that comes into picture. Alright, so the first and the foremost very important aspect of the point is the accountability. The second one, okay, the second one is biases. What you should not forget is AI is learning from humans, and humans are intrinsically biased. So whatever large data that is fed to the artificial intelligence, whatever this intelligence is learning from, it is a biased data. It is not an objective data. So it is obviously there that artificial intelligence will also become biased. Now this was seen in Amazon's, an example of this is an Amazon's automated recruitment system. This is a very good example. Okay, Amazon's automatic recruitment system. So what happened in this Amazon automatic recruitment system, it had learned from a large data set of human resource or HR. Now HRs, they had that gender stereotyping of specific roles confining to specific gender. Yes, the same bias of the gender stereotyping came to even the artificial intelligence. So the artificial intelligence also started to assign roles depending upon some prejudices and stereotypes on the basis of the gender stereotyping. See, on the basis of the gender stereotyping. This is a very, very clear, example that shows that artificial intelligence should not be integrated completely, or should not be dependent, or dependability of the artificial intelligence should be limited, because biases are intrinsic to artificial intelligence. So when this happens to public administration, remember, always link it back to public administration. When this happens to public administration, then what will be at stake is your fairness. What will be at stake is your fairness. See, in every point, I'm trying to bring more ethical vocabulary rather than just writing English. Most of the students and most of the discussions that I've seen is just focusing on English. Please bring more ethical keywords. Okay. Anyways, this is the second point. The third point I will talk about is human judgment or autonomy. Okay. So what is the meaning of this? For example, all decisions cannot be objective. All decisions cannot be objective. There comes a point where there has to be a mix of empathy, especially in public administration. especially in public administration. We know that in public administration, it is basically welfareism concept. And in welfareism concept, you cannot purely act on objectivity, you have to have empathy. So objectivity plus empathy is what is required. However, objectivity can be brought with artificial intelligence, but empathy can always come only with human intervention. Humans have to be there in public administration in order to make sure that there is empathy. And empathy is what will translate into welfareism. Welfareism is what will translate into equity. These words should come. That is what my point is. Okay. So these are the 3 points. The fourth and the last point. How dependable is artificial intelligence regarding rational decision making? The last point is data privacy. Okay. Now see, artificial intelligence requires large data to be fed to learn from, and also it is exposed to large data that are highly sensitive and private. Okay, especially put yourself in the context of public administration. In public administration, the government will have access to a lot of personal information of all the people. Now this personal information, if you feed it to the artificial intelligence, how fair is this? Have you taken the permission to give access to artificial intelligence of people's personal data? This can also lead to stereotyping. It can also lead to profiling. So these are some of the problems that you have on basing the dependability of artificial intelligence into rational decision making, especially in public administration. So I hope you understood the first dimension. Okay. So once we are done with the first dimension, let us move on to the second dimension. So how much dependable can it be? I am debating now on how much dependable can we make the artificial intelligence. The first point I will make is how much dependable can it be is it can be used for automation. When I say automation, it can be used for automating mechanical tasks. So when you use artificial intelligence to automate mechanical tasks, this can help improve efficiency. Okay. The next is it can help in prediction. It can help in prediction. So what prediction can be used in public administration, especially in the realm of disaster management? If it can predict droughts, if it can predict floods, now these are the stages where we can take the help of artificial intelligence and save lives. And saving even one life is very, very crucial, and if we can save even one life, that means integrating artificial intelligence becomes important. Now this statement makes it ethical. Okay. So the third one of what is important is planning. Okay. Planning, basically the most important aspect in planning is resource allocation. Now in resource allocation, you need computational abilities. Computational abilities to make sure that there is equity. Okay, depending upon different development parameters, we can make sure that the computational abilities of artificial intelligence can be used to allocate resources. So this is another way of how much dependability can artificial intelligence be in public administration. Okay, and the last one is to simplify procedures. Okay, artificial intelligence can help fasten the procedure. What can be the procedures? For example, background check. Okay, for example, document check. So when you do it manually, it takes a lot of time. So such procedures can be simplified with the help of artificial intelligence, or you can also allow the artificial intelligence itself to solve a lot of common query of the citizens. Like we have AI chatbots. These AI chatbots are the frontline, problem solvers. So any basic problems, if you just type the problem, they will give you the solution. So like that, it will help in simplifying procedures. Okay. So overall, I would like to conclude that the dependability of AI in public administration. The dependability of AI in public administration should always be narrowed and should always be followed by human intervention. you cannot design a policy, you cannot design a program that completely runs on artificial intelligence. For example, you cannot allow the entire MGNREGA beneficiary list to be verified by artificial intelligence. Sometimes what happens, even if there is minor error in the documents, that discretion of allowing that person to be a part of MNREGA may not be accomplished in artificial intelligence. So you should be very careful that human intervention should always be there, and the scope of AI should always be narrowed to mechanical tasks, prediction, planning and simplification. So I hope this is how the answer should be. So as you can see, the more I discuss, I will always try to bring the ethicality of that issue rather than talking about plain English or just giving general studies like dimensions. Because see, in the question also they are told, give from the ethical consideration point of view. From the ethical point of view they have asked, so you have to be very careful in bringing about the ethical keywords in every answer that you discuss. So this is about the first question. Let us now look at the 1B. The second half of the first question, that is 1B. So the 1B question reads as, ethics encompasses several key dimensions that are crucial in guiding individuals and organizations towards morally responsible behavior. Okay, so basically the question is on the basics of ethics. Okay, because look at this, explain the key dimensions of ethics that influences human actions and discuss how these dimensions shape ethical decision making in the professional context. Okay, now let us get on to it right away. The introduction. Okay, the introduction is, as you know, because it is the central focal point of this question is ethics. So I'll start by defining what is ethics. So basically, ethics is the codification of morality that helps guide individuals, organizations, countries to do what is right, and avoid doing what is wrong. Okay, so basically this is my definition of what ethics is. The next I'll come directly to the dimensions of ethics. So let me just go to the next page. So I hope you understood this. Okay, since it's a 10 marker, the one paragraph of definition is enough. You don't have to write two paragraphs. So now let us jump right into the key dimensions of ethics. Okay, the key dimensions of ethics. Okay, now what is very important is the first, you should know the subtle differences between different dimensions of ethics. For example, there is normative ethics. Okay, then there is meta ethics, then there is deontology, there is teleology. Okay, then you have applied ethics. There are several dimensions, but broadly we can discuss these 5. The reason is 10 marker, don't go into too much of depth, because there is one more half of the answer that you have to answer, that is how these dimensions will help in the professional context. So don't get overwhelmed that you know many points and start writing many points. Okay, so this is the key dimensions of ethics. Now in the key dimensions of ethics, give one line of what these dimensions are. Basically, normative ethics is the one that will give you the norms or standards. They are the ones that will give you the norms or standards, and it is these norms or standards that are there that creates a framework of what is right and what is wrong. Okay, so basically the normative ethics, this is the dimension that basically talks about what values are good, what values are bad, what is a virtue, what is a vice, what is right, what is wrong, what should be done in the society, what should not be done in the society. This is what is normative ethics. It gives you the norms. What do you mean by norms? They are unwritten rules. So this is what is normative ethics. The next is meta ethics. Now meta ethics talks about the ethical principles itself. That is, it talks about the nature. It talks about the nature of ethical principles. It talks about the nature of ethical principles. For example, if you take a value, analyzing that value itself is meta ethics. For example, let us say that human rights. Okay, now human rights this value, is it universal or is it relative? When did this human rights come into picture? How has this human rights been evolving? What are all the other subsidiary rights within this human rights? See, by understanding a value and going in depth about that value to understand the nature of that value itself is what is meta ethics. Okay. The next is deontological ethics. Deontological ethics is basically a duty-based ethics. That is, this is where you have to believe in the process and don't worry too much about the outcome. Okay, that is what is the deontological ethics. The next is teleological ethics. This dimension mainly talks about the outcomes or the impact. Here you have to always take a step that will provide the maximum happiness to maximum amount of people. Or you should always, in public administration, if I have to apply the teleological ethics, you should always take a decision that will always do greater good to greater number of people. That will always do greater good to greater number of people. So that is what is teleological ethics. Okay. The last one is applied ethics. So basically applied ethics is interested in application of ethical principles. Application of ethical principles in real world scenarios. Application of ethical principles in real world scenarios. Okay, so these are the key dimensions of ethics. A very good scope for you to write very nicely this answer. Okay, so this is the first dimension. The second, this is the first half of the question. The second is application of this dimension. Application of these dimensions in professional context. In the professional context. Okay, we will go one by one. Okay, one by one is how normative ethics will help in professional context. Normative ethics will help in professional context because it helps to set the framework. It helps to set the framework correct. Okay, for example, in let us say in the field of or in the profession of entertainment. In the profession of entertainment, normative ethics will clearly tell what is correct and what is wrong. So in that way, there is no systematic abuse of power. Systematic abuse of power. Now, if you see the Malayalam, industry, the film industry is undergoing this decay of ethics because of the harassment that has been done on women. Now this is mainly because the normative ethics is not set in that particular environment. What is right, what is wrong, and this is not properly made clear to these people. That is why this is happening. So this is one way of how you can talk about the application of dimension in the professional context. The second one comes meta ethics. Okay, the second one comes meta ethics. How meta ethics will help in the professional context is, for example, meta ethics means what? Meta ethics means if there is a value, we try to understand what exactly is that value. Okay, so let us say that there is an employee. The employee understands exactly the value of punctuality. If that employee is able to understand the exact value of punctuality for that organization, then that employee is never going to be late. The employee is never going to be late. So this is what is meta ethics. Meta ethics will help in giving clarity, and with clarity comes consistency in behavior. With clarity comes consistency in behavior. Now this is a very, very important aspect. The next is the teleology and deontology. Okay. Why deontology is important in a professional setup is when you are too worried about the outcome, your process is itself not starting properly. That is, you don't act in the fear of negative outcome. But if you forget about the outcome, if you just think about the process, then you act wisely. Then you act courageously. See, these are the words that should come. So, deontology will help us act wisely and it will help us act courageously. Why it will help us act courageously is because we are not worried too much about the process, about the outcome. We are only involved in the process. Okay. Teleology. How teleology will help in the professional context is, teleology should always be the guiding light for any type of decision making. That is, if there has to be a policy that has to be designed, if there has to be a decision that has to be taken, you should always keep in your mind that the decision should do greater good to greater number of people. So greater good to greater number should always be the guiding light for any decision making in any professional context. Okay, and the last is applied ethics. Okay, applied ethics is a specialized framework. I can tell you that it is a specialized framework. So it gives a framework for a specialized activity. For example, it can be in medicine. There is a different ethics that has to be followed. In film, there has to be a different ethics that has to be followed. In sports, there has to be a different ethics that has to be followed. Like that, every realm of profession will have its own specialized framework, and that specialized framework can be built because of applied ethics. So this is how the dimensions of ethics can be built in professional context or can help in professional context. Okay, we conclude by telling that the balance of all these dimensions, the balance of all these dimensions can be found in our constitution. Okay, which is the guideline for our morality. Okay, so this is a way you can conclude this statement. Okay, in this way you are trying to bring in our constitution that enshrines the value that covers all the dimensions that we have discussed. Okay, so this is a very good way of concluding. Let us start with the next question, that is 2A. Again, a very interesting question. You should always know that ethics in international relation will always have one question. So you can prepare the question before and even going to the exam, but it's a very good question to showcase your different scope of answer writing. Okay, let me see, or let me tell you what is the different scope of answer writing. First, let me read out the question very carefully because it's a very lengthy question, and I have told you always ints will always be given in the question, so you should always be very careful in reading those questions. So let me read it out. It is not enough to talk about peace, one must believe in it, and it is not enough to believe in it, one must act upon it. So here there are three keywords that is given very smartly in the question: talk, believe, and act. Now most of the students, what they do, the moment they read this entire question, they'll jump to the second half of the question, they'll skip this. This is where the mistake happens. Don't do that. Let me tell you next how to do it, but let us continue this. In the present context, the major weapon industries of the developed nations are adversely influencing the continuation of wars for their own self-interest, okay, all around the world. What are the ethical considerations of a powerful nation in today's international arena to stop the continuation of the ongoing conflicts? Okay, so again, we can divide it into two halves. The first half is talking about these three parameters, that is talk, believe, and act. Okay, and in the second half you talk about the weapon industries of developed countries. Okay, and the third is the ethical considerations. Okay, so this is how I will structure my answer as well. Okay, now let us see how to introduce. In the introduction, I will obviously talk about these three parameters, that is, one is talk, another is believe, and another is act. Okay, when we say talk, we always talk because we are interested in it. Okay, that is, I am interested in what is happening, hence I can talk about it. I have some type of an interest, then we talk. Belief comes with attitude. What is your attitude towards an object? What is your cognitive capacity? What is your emotional capacity? What is your behavioral capacity? When you look at an object, that is what will make you believe. Okay, your attitude shapes your belief. Okay, and what makes you act is your courage. So if you are interested, you will talk. If your attitude is inclined towards the object, you are going to believe that that object is good for you. But what will make you act is the courage. Okay, now this courage is what is lacking in today's world. This is how I will introduce. Okay, so I hope you understood the introduction. This is how ethics has to be written. Okay, ethics should not be written like science. Ethics should not be written like general studies answers. Okay, anyways, I hope you understood this. So I'll elaborate a little bit upon this now. So I have finished the first part. Let us go to the second part. The second part is weapon industries of developed countries are continuing the war. Why? Okay, so I am talking about these weapon industries. Why are they, weapon industries of developed nations, why are they continuing the war? That is the next dimension. The first reason is, as they have themselves told, the self-interest. The first reason is their self-interest. What is their self-interest? The self-interest may be to maintain power. That is what is known as hegemony. To control resources, to control people, or the last is to control ideology. Okay, so these are the four aspects why self-interest comes into picture, and this is the reason why most of the developed countries are pushing for continuation of war. These keywords should come. Okay, yes, you can definitely give different examples. Examples can be Russia-Ukraine war. There is Russia-Ukraine war that is happening. There is Israel-Gaza war that is happening. Okay, there is Azerbaijan-Armenia war that is happening. Okay, so these are all the wars. Then there is China and the Philippines who are at loggerheads in the South China Sea. See, all these are different things that are happening around the world. So you can give relevant examples wherever you want, but overall self-interest comes on four dimensions. One is the power, next is the race to resources, the next is the people, to control the people and to control the ideology. That is another, that's the first aspect. The second aspect is mainly to do with proxy wars that are happening. So proxy wars are done by these nations in order to make sure that the industries are creating their own demand. The industries are creating their own demand. For example, USA had to interfere in Afghanistan because of the pressure from the military industry in their country. The military lobby made sure that all the forces of USA were in Afghanistan, because once they are there, there is constant demand for the weapons. So this is the second aspect of why the developed countries, especially the military, advanced countries, are always helping or always facilitating the continuation of wars. Okay, so this is the second dimension. The third dimension is groupism. The world is split into groups. Okay, so it seems like these groups are mutually exclusive. Okay, so some groups can be the southern nations versus the northern nations. So the southern nations are the third world countries, the northern nations are the developed countries. Then you have the capitalistic versus the socialist or the communist. That is another way of dividing. Sorry, the one is capitalistic, another is communist. That is another way of dividing. The another way of dividing is democratic versus authoritarian. That is another way of dividing. So you can see that the world is getting divided into several groups. Even on the basis of religion, it is getting divided. For example, there is Shia and Sunnis in Islam. Okay, so like that, you can see that even within the Myanmar, there are so many different factions that have come. Okay, so that is another problem. So this groupism that is happening in this world, that again is created by these developed countries in order to make sure that there is continuation of war. The groupism that is already there, they are going to make sure that this groupism is further separated, and because it is further separated, that in turn will help in the continuation of war. This is another reason why these developed nations are facilitating the continuation of war, because there is an artificial demand created by them. Okay, so overall this dimension talks about the greed, the value of greed. Everything that they are doing out of self-interest in order to perpetuate groupism and to create proxy wars is mainly because of greed. So this is what is this dimension. The third dimension which I was talking about is what are the ethical considerations. Now what are the ethical considerations is the first and the most important is human rights. Whenever there is war, there is a lot of human rights violation. So if we have to stop these human right violations, we have to make sure we stop the war. The second is human misery. Okay, for example, there is famines, there is children who are dying, there is innocent civilians who are going to die. So this human misery is another ethical consideration. The third one that we have to consider is the value of peace. Against the value of peace, that peace will always bring harmony. Okay, the peace will always bring harmony. Okay, so harmony is always important for solidarity. Harmony is always important for solidarity. And the last one, the last ethical consideration is in just war concept. Just war concept. So what is this just war concept? So the just war concept says that if we have to go to war, there has to be a strong ethical backing, and the war must always be the last option. After all the option is tried, after diplomacy, communication, consensus, third party mediation, arbitration, all the options are tried, only then we have to go for the war. So these are some of the ethical considerations that we have to take into picture. Now these are the ethical considerations that the developed nations have to take into picture in order to make sure that this will not perpetuate. Okay, so overall, how will I like to conclude? I like to conclude by telling war starts in the minds of men. War starts in the minds of men before going to the field. War starts in the minds of men before going to the field. So, if we want to stop the war, we have to stop it at the minds of men itself. Okay, so in the minds of the men itself, the war has to be stopped. Only then it will stop in the field. Whatever we are trying to stop the war at the field will not work, because it is only those people at the higher position, it is only those people who are there at this developed nations, they have to make up their mind that they should not create war, because war creates chaos, war creates loss of resources. This loss of resources will only perpetuate the human misery. So I hope you understood this. This is how you have to write. As you can understand, try to bring more ethical standpoint and ethical vocabulary in your answer, and don't make it look like GS2 international relations. Okay, so this is how you should write this particular answer of ethics in international relations. Now let us look at the question 2b. Again, the question 2b is applied ethics. Okay, that is the application of ethics in a real world scenario of global warming and climate change. So let us read the question carefully. Now look at this. Global warming and climate change are the outcomes of human greed in the name of development, indicating the direction in which extinction of organisms, including human beings, is heading towards the loss of life on earth. Okay, how do you put an end to this to protect life and bring equilibrium between the society and the environment? Okay, so basically two parts of the question. One is they're talking about why this climate change and global warming is leading into extinction. Okay, that is what you have to address. The second part is how do you stop it? Okay, again, this is climate change and global warming is a significant problem that entire humanity is not able to find solution. That is a consensus based solution. So they are not expecting you to write a solution that is going to change the thinking of the examiner. That is not what it is. They are trying to see how you can address different stakeholders. That is what they are trying to see. So when you are trying to provide steps of how to stop this global warming, don't try to make it more scientific, don't try to make it more environmental, try to make it more ethical in bringing different stakeholders. The different stakeholders can be the farmers, the rural areas, the vulnerable groups, the marine organisms, the animals in the terrestrial regions, the plants. These are the different stakeholders that you have to bring to play in order to show how you can address the sensitivities of these stakeholders. So that is how the ethics answer should be written. Again, I keep emphasizing on the fact that how ethics answer should be written, because most of the discussions that I've seen, or most of the people that I've seen the answers of, are more or less English and general studies, and they are not on the basis of ethics. So again, please don't do this mistake. The reason why I'm doing this with so much of effort is to give all you students a proper orientation of how to write answers in a specific paper. Okay, so overall, let us start off with this introduction. Okay, so we start off with the introduction. Many people, what they will do, they will start off with the introduction telling what is global warming and what is climate change. This you should do in general studies papers, but not in ethics paper. In ethics paper, you start by telling that the earth provides for everyone's needs, but not every man's greed. Mahatma Gandhi ji. Okay, so this is how you start. Okay, so this will be coherent with what the question they have asked. Climate change and global warming are consequences of human greed. So that's why I'm starting in this way. The earth provides for everyone's needs, but not for everyone's greed. Okay, this is how I start. Now, the first half of the question, you have to address why is this happening? Why is there the constant, degradation of this earth through the consequences of climate change? So why? Again, here don't try to bring a lot of environment or scientific angles. Talk about one, false superiority. False superiority means we as humans think that we are at the center of the universe. We as humans, we think we are at the center of the universe and everything rotates around us. And in that endeavor, we are trying to neglect and we are trying to exploit other living organisms. So this is the first reason why you see the climate change. Okay, don't tell vehicular pollution, don't tell deforestation. Stop going on those lines and please talk on these lines. This is what is important. That is why my discussions are very important, because I have understood the demands of this particular exam. Okay, so that is the false superiority, the first one. The second is the race to power. Okay, as I told you, the race to power can be to control resources, it can be to control people, or to spread ideology. So the race to power is always controlling. Now this race to power has created, for example, colonialism, and that colonialism has created a lot of problems, and one such problem is global warming and climate change. The race to power is why we see rapid industrialization in the West, and this garb or greed of rapid industrialization. This rapid industrialization is why you saw the emissions skyrocketing, and these emissions that are skyrocketed is what is the reason for climate change. Look at this. So that is the race to power. The third one is competition. The third one is competition. As you can see in our world history, there was a race to Africa. That is, all the European nations had a race or a competition in order to divide Africa into different parts. Now this race is a manifestation of greed, and this manifestation of greed has resulted in rampant environmental degradation, and this environmental degradation has resulted in climate change or global warming, because Africa had luxuriant and abundant vegetation. Because of the coming of these powers into this particular region as a means of competition, this has created degradation. See how this is resulted in this. Okay, the next one is growth versus development. That is another reason why we are failing, because our main emphasis on growth. Growth is based on economic indicators. Okay, growth is based on economic indicators. How many buildings we have, how many cities we have, how many people are in urban areas. This is what is growth. But if you take development, development is basically based on human indicators. Development is basically based on human indicators. That is, what is the literacy rate, what is the sex ratio, what is the infant mortality rate or maternity mortality rate, how many people are able to live a standard living, standard quality of life. These are the things that is development. Now this is neglected and major focus is on growth, and this has affected the environment, which in turn has resulted to climate change. So what I'm trying to tell is, look at how you bring the dimensions and connect it to climate change ethically. This is what is needed in this paper. Okay, so anyways, so you addressed the first half, you addressed why, now you address how are you going to stop it. Now you have to address how you are going to stop it. So here, talk about the first and very important concept of live for environment concept. Now, live for environment concept talks about sustainable living. It talks about going back to our roots. Okay, because during our ancient time or during our forefathers, they lived in harmony with the environment. There was never over exploitation or over consumption. So that is what is the first aspect that you have to talk about. And more importantly, this is the concept introduced by India. So this you have to talk under any circumstances. The second aspect, how you can control it, is One Health approach. Okay, One Health approach. What is One Health approach? When you see humans, you see vegetation, as well as you see animals, all as one. This is what is known as One Health approach. That is, even if there is one component that falls ill, that illness will spread to all the other components. So we have to treat everything as one. When everything is working fine, then the entire system is fine. Even one component fails, everything fails. This is what is One Health approach. Again, this is another approach that is promoted by the Indian government or India as a nation. The third is the intergenerational equity. Intergenerational equity. Obviously, many people would have written this. Intergenerational equity, another word, a very famous word for this is sustainable development. We have to make our development more sustainable. That is, we have to preserve the resources for our future generations as well. So that is what is sustainable intergenerational equity. But one more important aspect is intragenerational equity. Intragenerational equity. Another name for intragenerational equity is inclusive development. Another name for intragenerational equity is inclusive development. Inclusive development is important to control climate changes because, see, as inequality increases, there is rise in poverty, and poverty will actually increase the emissions as well as the environmental degradations. Why? Because poor people, you cannot teach poor people how to live sustainably, because for them living itself is one of the important goals in life. So as inequality increases in the world, there is poverty that increases. Poverty will only increase the environmental degradation, and that degradation in turn will result in climate change and global warming and climate change. So we have to come to a world that is inclusive, that has less inequality, that will bring more harmony in the society and will help everyone to work together in order to conserve the earth for future generations. So these are the four important points that I would like to tell with respect to how we would like to help balance or bring equilibrium between society and environment. Okay, so this is how I would like to tell. How I would like to conclude. How I would like to conclude is the responsibility of fighting climate change is differentiated. The responsibility of fighting climate change is differentiated. That is, the efforts that has to be put by developed nations should be very high compared to the developing nations. And when I say efforts, I am not talking about physical efforts. The efforts can be funds, the efforts can be technology, the efforts can be in the lines of infrastructural support. Okay, so developing countries, the reason why their responsibility is relatively low is because they have to first focus on human development. Because our development indicators itself is very low. If we start focusing on climate change purely, then our inequality, the equity will all, we have to create equity first and then talk about the climate change. So we are still on that endeavor of creating equity. Hence, we cannot, focus so much on the climate change. Moreover, differentiated responsibility comes because the developed nation have that extra responsibility because they were the one who created this problem in the first place. But we should not tell it like that. They have the special responsibility because they are the culprits of emissions during the Industrial Revolution. So this is how we have to end it. So this is how I would like to conclude my answer. So I would like to conclude by telling the responsibility of climate change stands differentiated, wherein the developed nations have to play a primary role in controlling climate change because they were the culprits of emissions during industrial revolution. This is how I will conclude my answer. Okay, so this completes this answer. I hope you understood how to bring ethicality in this applied form of ethical question. I hope you enjoyed this, guys. Let us move on to the next question. Alright, now let us start with the quotes. The quotes is from the question number 3A, 3B and 3C. These are the three questions usually they will ask you in the form of quotes. Okay, now before I start off, one thing what you should observe in the UPSC paper, when they give this 3A, 3B and 3C as quotes, on top they would have given a question that is very, very important that people usually will neglect, and that reads as, what does this quote mean to you in the present context? Okay, what does it mean to you in the present context? The two important keywords here is you in the present context. So many people will not tell their own interpretation of the quote at all because they are afraid. They feel that what if my interpretation is at the superficial level, I want to bring depth. And in that endeavor to bring depth, they will start citing other examples, they will start giving other quotes, they will start making a lot of jargons, but what they will fail to bring is their self, their interpretation, their originality. So this is the major problem of this, most of the students who write these quotes. And one more problem that I have seen in quotes is, when there is a quote given, people will write one more quote. And then they will explain how this quote is very close to that quote. They have not asked you to write a quote that is parallel to this quote. Why are you writing then? What does it mean to you in the present context? That is what you have to bring. So overall, this is how I would like to structure this particular quotes. The quotes can be very, very easily written in a matter of what does it mean, the different dimensions, and the next is the contemporary relevance. The next is contemporary relevance. See, if you can bring these three into the quotes, your job is done. That is all you have to keep. This is what you are going to learn now. See how we can bring it. Okay, let us start off with 3A. Okay, the 3A says, learn everything that is good from others. You have to learn from others, but what is good. But bring it in and in your own way, absorb it. Do not become others. Okay, so here you can, first let me tell you what does it mean to me. Okay, it means to me, the first aspect is what does it mean to me. Okay, it means to me that what is important is our personal identity. Though the world is always allowing us to learn continuously, the world will always allow us to learn continuously, it will constantly allow us to learn continuously, we should always make sure that we maintain our individuality, we have to maintain our genuinity and self-identity. See, this is what it means. What does it mean to me? This is what it means to me. Okay. Now, what do I do? How do I bring the dimensions to elaborate this particular quote? Look how I am going to bring the dimensions. See, learn everything that is good from others. Okay. What is important here is the learning process can be both good as well as bad. We always make sure that we focus more on the bad things rather than the good things. So what is very, very important is to focus on the good and to learn good from others and not the bad. Okay, so that is what is the first aspect that you have to talk. So this is the first dimension that I will talk. The second dimension that I will talk is, look at this, in your own way, absorb it. Okay, for example, what is your own way? Your own way, your own way can be fast or slow. Your own way can be confined to some specific realms, but not the entire life, because you have your own life principles that are set. So you just want to inculcate them only in your profession, and in your personal life you don't want to inculcate it. So you can absorb it in your own way. That is another dimension that I will talk about. Okay, but the third dimension again I will touch upon is do not become others. So the third dimension that I will talk about is do not become others. So why will I talk do not become others is we will not live our life to our fullest. We will not realize the purpose of life. We will not try to enjoy the life how we want it. We will start living the life of others. And this will not give us that satisfaction. So this living the life of others is what will create regret. It will what will create depression as we look back after our when we are elders or when we have aged. When we look back in our life, we will feel disappointed and we will feel regretted that we did not stay who we are. See, the point I'm trying to make is the dimensions, whatever I'm talking, the dimensions will come from the statement itself. So take the quote, divide the quote into several parts and analyze it and then stitch it back together. Okay, the stitching back together is important, just dissecting it is not. So basically, first what you have told, the first you have talked about learning good from others. The second you have talked about how your own way you have to absorb it, and the third is do not become others. That is how you have to talk about this entire thing. The next is the contemporary relevance. The contemporary relevance, the major, one of the very, very important application of this quote is the social media. So if you look at the social media, many people have outsourced their identity. Many people have outsourced their identity. What do you mean by outsource their identity? Outsource their identity is they will follow what the influencers follow. If the influencers tell that this diet is good, they are going to follow it. If they tell that this fashion is good, they are going to follow it. If they tell that this person is good, they are going to have an attitude of that person being good. So they are going to follow irrespective of what the influencer says is good or bad. So this is the contemporary relevance. We are increasingly outsourcing our identity, and when we are outsourcing our identity, our personal individuality is missing. Got this? So this is how we would like to tell. Hence, as we become more and more digitized, as we integrate more and more technology into our life, what becomes even more important is information will start becoming available very easily, but in that information, we should not lose our identity. This is how you should end your answer. See how nicely you are able to know what the quote means to you. Then you are able to analyze by cutting the statement into different aspects and then clubbing it back and then talking about the contemporary relevance. You do that, your quote will be even better. If you can bring different social context into this also, it is even more better. So this is about the first quote. The second quote is 3b. Let us first read it out. Faith is of no avail in the absence of strength. Faith and strength both are essential to accomplish any great work. Sardar Patel. Okay. Again, what you should know is they have asked two variables, faith and strength. So you should know that you should play around with these two variables. The second is these two variables that they have given is technical. These are technical terms. So whenever they give technicals, you can ethically define them. Whenever they give technical terms, you can ethically define them. For example, integrity. If they give you objectivity, these are all technical terms that you can define ethically. So here it gives you scope. First, faith is of no avail in the absence of strength. Faith and strength both are essential. So overall, the entire statement is telling that faith and strength should go together. Okay, and only if these go together, then there will be great work. Okay, the major example of this is the forefathers of our constitution. The forefathers of our constitution were able to succumb so much of oppression, so much of violence from the Britishers, so much of restrictions, and still had the strength to endure it. But even more important, had the faith also that they will emerge victorious, and this created what is there, the independent India today. Yes, so that is what shows great work. This is how you can give the contemporary relevance or how important faith and strength is. But coming to the introduction part, as I told you, first I'll talk about faith, then I'll talk about strength. Okay, so first let me talk about faith. What is faith? Faith is unwavering belief. Faith is unwavering belief in one's abilities or one's purpose. Unwavering belief in one's abilities and one's purpose. Why is faith important? Faith is the one that gives us hope. It instills the sense of purpose. Okay, it keeps us hopeful. Okay, the next is, it is the one that provides us. It is the one that provides us the vision to the future. Vision to the future. Okay, so this is the first paragraph. I'll talk mainly about faith. The next paragraph, I'll mainly talk about strength. I'll mainly talk about strength. What is strength? Strength is the physical, mental, and moral fortitude. It is the physical, mental, and moral fortitude. One second. Physical, mental, and moral fortitude required to translate belief into action. Look at this. The definition itself as the relationship between strength and faith. Look at this. Belief will come from faith. Action will come from strength. Okay. So if the translation has to happen, both faith and strength have to act in coherence. This is what it is. So faith and strength, you have defined it. And now, as I told you, the third dimension that you are going to write is the translation. The translation of belief into action. Okay, the third dimension is the translation of belief into action. Why are you telling this? Because the statement reads, I'll again repeat, both are essential. Both are essential, and faith is of no avail without strength. So that's what they're telling. Both are essential. Faith is of no avail without strength. So you have to prove that. So that is what you're proving. The translation of belief becoming action is only if the faith where the belief resides will result in action only if you have the strength. Okay. It is the strength that will give you the endurance to suffer hardships. Okay. It will give you the courage to take action. Okay, so this is what you have to talk. Now, since they are using two variables and they are telling how interrelated they are, you can also give a very good table. See, I can add a table like this, two variables, right? So you have faith, strength, faith, strength. So let us say you have faith, but you are not having strength. You have faith, but you are not having strength. In that scenario, what happens is you will have inaction. Give a contemporary relevance of this. The contemporary relevance of this is basically stopping road rage. We see many road accidents happening and we see people fighting, but we do not go and try to stop the fight because we don't have the strength. We know that we have the faith to do it, but we don't want to do it because we lack the strength or the courage to do it. That is another contemporary relevance. It results in inaction. Okay, even when there is a small accident, we will not be able to help them out. Though we have the faith that we can, we will not help them because of the lack of strength. Okay, the next is you don't have faith, but you have strength. Okay, now this will result in misplaced efforts. This will result in misplaced efforts. What is happening is radicalization of the youth. This is an example. Okay, the example is radicalization of the youth. Okay, the youth have a lot of energy, they have a lot of strength and courage, but these youth are being radicalized by fundamentalists for wrong purposes. So see, because of faith not there, strength being there, it is resulting in misplaced effort. So this is something that you can talk. Okay, so overall I have already given you the contemporary relevance. You can talk about the contemporary relevance of our freedom fighters. How the freedom fighters add both faith as well as strength, and that is how we today are enjoying the rights of our fundamental rights that we enjoy is because of the sacrifices that were made by our forefathers of the freedom struggle. So this is how we can bring the contemporary relevance. I have brought the contemporary relevance here as well. Okay, by talking about two different examples. At the end you can also bring one more contemporary relevance, or if you feel that that is enough, then that is fine. So overall you can conclude by telling that both faith as well as strength are tested in contemporary times. The faith is tested because our beliefs are constantly changing due to the rapid information availability. and our beliefs are changing because of misinformation that is happening. Okay, and strength, increasingly we are lacking strength because we are able to just stay anonymous. For example, digitally, we are very strong digitally. We show our presence strongly digitally because we are anonymous. No one knows us. That is where we are commenting. So we are in the comment culture. We comment everything we want. But when it comes to action, we don't have the strength to do it. Social media, the keyboard warriors. We are all keyboard warriors. But when it comes to action, we are not doing it. So with increasing social media, with exposure to information, faith is being tested. We are also lacking the strength to do anything. So these two variables are actually creating a lot of these two variables are actually important in today's world. This is how we would like to conclude. So to just give you the statement, this is how I would like to test it. Give the conclusion. Faith and strength both are being tested in contemporary times in the realm of social media, where we lack the strength to take action, but we only comment. Our faith is also being tested because of rapid misinformations that is there, that tests our belief, and that in turn will shape our faith within us. So this is how I would like to conclude. So this is about the second quote. Again, I am trying to show you how to break the quote into different sections and then bring it all together. And while doing that, you should express what does it mean to you, and should also bring contemporary present context into it. So this is how the quote will be exceptionally written, and you'll get very good marks. Let us start with the third quote. The third quote reads 3C. Let me read it out. In law, a man is guilty when he violates the rights of others. In ethics, he is guilty if he only thinks of doing so. Okay. So again, this has two variables. Here you have law and you have ethics. Okay. So again, always the trick to write a very good analysis for a quote is, when you read the quote, simplify the quote. See, when you read the quote, first you read the quote. The second, you understand the core idea. After you understand the core idea, you bring it to a simplified title. And once you bring it to the simplified title, the fourth is play in and around this title. You play in and around this title. This is the trick. Okay. So this is what we started in the first quote. When I read the entire quote, my simplified format was personal identity and individuality. So I played around with that. In the second quote, when I read the quote, I understood the two variables faith and strength and the interrelationship between them. So I played around it. The third is the two variables law and ethics. Now I will play around this simplified title of law and ethics. So this is how you should understand the core idea. From there you should simplify it and then start playing around with it. That is when you will be able to analyze the things very well. Okay. For example, let us start off. So in the introduction, or what does it mean to me? Okay, we will not say introduction here, we will say what does it mean to me. So in the first is, when we are talking about what does it mean to me, I will first talk about the interrelationship between ethics and laws. Basically what I will tell is, if this is ethics, this is laws. Okay, so where do we get the ethics from? We get the ethics from the social, cultural, religious realms of a society. So this is where we are going to get ethics. What is ethics at the end of the day? Ethics is codification of morality. Okay, and obviously the codification of morality is what will influence the coming of laws. So laws are subservient. Laws are narrow compared to the ethics. Ethics is more broader. That's why laws can only make a person guilty, or laws can only punish a person who is violative of intent, violative of act. Laws can only punish a person who is violative of act, but ethics makes it wrong on the person even if their intent is wrong. But ethics makes it violative even if their intent is wrong. Why it makes it violative even if their intent is wrong? Because ethics is a very broad term compared to law. Law is a very, very small aspect when it comes to ethics. Ethics is an aspect that is built for several generations. It has built for several generations. It has involved a lot of traditions. It has gone through a lot of refinements, And today we have what we call as a standard framework of our social morality, and that is what is ethics. So ethics is a very broad aspect, and hence it considers both intent as well as your action. Okay, so this is how I would like to introduce. See, I am trying to show the interrelationship between laws and ethics. Okay, after I introduce this, now let us talk about the two aspects, the two dimensions. First, I'll talk about law. Okay, I'll tell law is nothing but the rules and regulations that are created by the authority. Okay, now why will these rules and regulations emerge? They will emerge because people will create an agreement. People will create an agreement that there has to be established, established rules of behavior. Okay, and this established rules of behavior is what Thomas Hobbes. This established rules of behavior is what Thomas Hobbes calls as a social contract. Okay, and laws will protect. The laws will protect the social contract. So if there is breach of the social contract, then it is violative. It's violative of the rights, and that violative of the rights, and that will in turn lead to the punishment. Okay, so this is what is a law. So I hope you understood how I am going to tell the law. So basically, the law is the guardian of the social contract. Any transgression of the said agreement, will always invite punishment. Okay, so this is law. Now, this is the first dimension I will talk about. The next is ethics. So what is ethics? As I told you, ethics is a moral framework. Okay, it is mainly value intensive, and when I say value intensive, a society will always have foundational values. It will always have foundational values. So when a society has foundational values, one of the basic or the commonality of all foundational values is its intent with action. That is, your intent also matters, not only your action. That is, you want to be good person, not just by acting good, but your intent also should be good. See, this is the basic edifice of any society. Alright, so that is a foundational value. So ethics is mainly guarding the intent as well as the action. So if that is why, according to Immanuel Kant, it is not just violative that you act transgressing other rights, but even if you think of transgression, then you are committing a mistake in ethics. Okay, you think of transgression, then it is violative. Because in ethics, it is the intent that also matters along with action. Because here in ethics, it is not about creating an agreement for general rules of behavior. It is mainly concerned with creating a good human being. Okay, so I hope you understood the basic difference between a law and ethics. Law and ethics. So law is concerned with making sure that the agreement is intact. What is the agreement? Agreement is established rules and regulations. Whereas ethics is not concerned with any agreement. Ethics is basically concerned with making a person a good human being. So if a person has to be a good human being, their actions alone will not decide them being good. Their intent also matters. Okay, so this is a very elaborative, it requires a little bit of maturity to answer this in a very nice way, but a very good quote. Okay, so this is how you can divide a particular quote, you can dissect it and analyze it and then bring it back. See, this is how I have brought it back. Okay, so we can conclude by telling that if law is in charge of protecting the social contract, then ethics is responsible for creating harmony Ethics is responsible for creating harmony between what we do, what we talk, and what we think. When what we do, what we talk, and what we think are in harmony, that means that the ethical job, the job of ethics is done. Okay, so the main responsibility of ethics is when there is an harmony between what we do, what we talk, and what we think. Okay, so this is how I would like to conclude. So I hope this was helpful. So this is how you have to do the quotes. Everyone feels that the quote is very difficult. How do I analyze it? So I hope you have got a way to deal with the quotes. Do not forget, quotes are the easiest part of the ethics paper. You can practice them very nicely. You can take the last 10 years and just practice, and you will get an idea of how to deal with the quotes. Just take all the tools that I have taught you. Don't forget you, meaning according to you, and also bringing the present context. This is very, very important. So this finishes the quotes, and 3A, 3B, 3C is done. Okay guys, now let us look at the question 4A. Okay, so 4A, the question reads as follows. The concept of just and unjust is contextual. What was just a year back may turn out to be unjust in today's society. Changing context should be constantly under scrutiny to prevent miscarriage of justice. Examine the above statement with suitable examples. Okay, again they are specifying suitable examples, so you have to bring in a lot of contemporary aspects and attach it to this particular answer. Okay, don't try to make it very generic. So let us get on with the the concept itself. The basic central core idea of the concept is justice. They are mainly talking about justice. Okay, so let us start with the introduction. The concept of just and unjust is a dynamic concept, and it is constantly evolving. It is constantly evolving with respect to the political, the cultural, the societal, and the technological advancements. The technological advancements. Okay, this is what I would like to first initially give the introduction as. I am trying to prove that the concept of just and unjust is completely dynamic in nature. It is not static. That is my point here. Okay, now coming to this contextual. See, they are given another keyword in a question called contextual. Okay, so contextual. Now I am going to tell what is this contextual concept of just and unjust. What is this conceptual concept of just and unjust? Okay, so what this context means is, if you take historical context, if you take the historical context, we can say that slavery was once seen as a legitimate institution. In the 14th, 15th, 16th century, if you see, slavery was seen as a legitimate institution, and only in the 18th century, that we came to realize that this slavery is a violation of human rights, and this made us change what is the concept of justice. Until then, when we viewed slavery as legitimate, the justice was different. Now when we view slavery, the concept of justice is different. We see slavery as a negative aspect, we see slavery as violation of human rights, and that shows historical context of how the concept of just and unjust has evolved. This is the first point that I am going to try to make. So the first is the historical context. The second that I am going to tell is the societal context. The second is the societal context. Now, if you take within the society, we had transgenders. These transgenders in our society lacked basic rights, they lacked basic necessities, and they also lacked any type of welfare or positive affirmation. Okay, now this was seen as not injustice. This was just seen because we overlooked the concept of justice when it comes to transgenders. But today the societal norms have changed. Today we see transgenders as the third gender. We see transgenders as part of humanity. We make sure that these transgenders will also get their place in the society with dignity. They get the place in the society with dignity. So they have reservations now. Their violations will also be punished. Any human right violations with transgenders will also be punishable by offense. Okay, and they will also get welfare measures from the government. Look at this, how the concept of justice and injustice has evolved within the societal context. Okay, the third one I would like to tell is the law context, the context of law, the context of law in the concept of just and unjust. See, for example, section 377 of our IPC, section 377 of our IPC criminalized homosexuality. It criminalized homosexuality. Now, after the judgment in 2018, after the judgment of the Supreme Court in 2018, this particular section was completely void. This section 377 was made completely void. So, homosexuality, which was seen as a criminal offense, today is not seen as a criminal offense, and therefore the concept of justice has widened. You are seeing that from different contexts, how the concept of justice has been constantly broadening. It is all encompassing and undoing the injustice that was done in different aspects or contexts of human life. It can be historical context, it can be legal context, it can be the context of law. The fourth one I can also bring is the gender context. Okay, the gender context. Before, gender inequality was seen as a natural way of life. It was seen as a natural way of life. But today, gender inequality is violation. Gender inequality is violation of human rights of women. So today, women have got their own rights, their own recognitions, their own set of necessities that are recognized not only by the constitution, but also the law and also the society. Now see how the concept of just and unjust has evolved, and the justice as a concept or just as a concept is becoming all encompassing. Okay, the last one I would like to tell is technology or technological context. The last is technological context. In technological context, we can talk about data. In today's world, data becomes very important because data contains identity of an individual. It contains the private, sensitive information of an individual. Okay, so it contains the identity of an individual, it contains the private, sensitive information of the individual. So this data becomes very important, and today the concept of justice has encompassed this data. That is, there has to be data privacy, there has to be judicious use of data, there has to be judicious use of data, and we also have to prevent misuse of data. Okay, and we also have to prevent the selling or commercialization of data. Look at this. So this is something that has come in a very, very recent times. This was not there before. Today, as we move more towards the digital world, we are seeing that data is becoming the new norm that we have to protect. Data is becoming the basic human rights that we have to make sure that is not misused by the people who have access to it, especially the public administration. So this is how you can tell that the concept of justice or the concept of just and the concept of unjust is constantly evolving. It is constantly evolving. Okay. Now, as I told you, in every context, I have given you examples because they have explicitly asked you about the examples. So that is very important that you do. The conclusion for this answer would be, just like how the concept of just and unjust is dynamic, even the concept of laws, institutions, rules, regulations also are dynamic. So if the contextual nature of just and unjust keeps evolving, in the same manner the contextual nature of laws and rules, institutions and regulations must also evolve to keep pace with the society, technology as well as the political nature of that region. So this is what I would like to conclude. So overall the conclusion is like this: just like the concept of just and unjust evolves in different contexts within the society, the laws, rules, regulations and institutions should also keep pace with this evolution. So this is how I will like to end this answer, by talking about the concept of just and unjust. Again, a very good answer, but it's very important that you don't just write generic answers but give a lot of contemporary examples. Like how I gave, you can give different aspects. See, historically when we speak, untouchability was an institution in ancient India. Today untouchability is something that is banned. So this is a historical context of talking about it. You take child marriages, you take dowry, you take inheritance from women, inheritance for women, you take domestic violence. There is so many wide areas of examples that you can take and write from the concept of just and unjust. You just have to prove that how the concept is encompassing and it is broadening in everyday life as we progress towards development. So that is what is the question, a very good question. So this completes the question of 4A. Let us now start with 4B. The 4B question is like this: mindless addiction to form, ignoring the substance of matter, results in rendering injustice. A perceptive civil servant is the one who ignores such literalness and carries out the true intent. Examine the above statement with suitable illustrations. Okay, now again, as I've always told you, look at the questions and observe the keywords. Okay, so here the important keywords are form, substance, injustice, literalness, intent. Look at this. So these are the keywords that they have already given in the question. Now, if they are including so much of keywords in the question, that means there is a purpose for doing so. They could have framed this sentence in a very short way. They could have just told the form is not only important but even the substance is important in civil services. Examine. They could have given like this only. Why are they giving it so elaboratively? They are giving it so elaboratively so to see how well can you analyze, how well can you understand the minute details. Now these are the few things that you should be very careful, especially in your ethics paper. Most of the people will miss out on this. Most of the people will just jump to the core idea and start addressing it, whereas they let go of all the keywords that are included in this particular question. I've told you even in the quotes, I'm telling you even here that it is very important for you to always have an eye on the keywords that are used in the question, and you should always play around with those keywords. Okay, anyways, so this is one other way of also reading the question in your ethics paper. Okay, anyways, now let us start off with the question. The question reads like this. So let us start with the introduction. So obviously the introduction, I will write the core idea. Okay, the core idea is the statement highlights two approaches. On one approach is the rigid rule-based approach. And the other approach is the purposeful intent-based approach. One is the rigid rule-based approach and the second is the purposeful and intent-based approach. So this is my introduction. So in the introduction, I am trying to just give the central core idea. Okay, so this is how I will start. Now what I will do in the body, as I told you, the body is the part where you have to do the analysis, and how to do the analysis is try to use the keywords used here. Always play around with the keywords used there. So what it will do, one, it will ease up your job. You don't have to think out of randomness of different points. The second is, it will also, by using the keywords that is there in the question, it will seem like you're writing in conformance with the demands of the question. So that is the advantage of using the keywords that they already give in the question itself. So when you develop this habit of writing with the keywords that they give in the question, you will always enjoy writing answers to questions that are very big, questions that have a lot of keywords. You will not fear such questions that are looking very huge, but actually the answers are very simple. So I hope you got this. Okay, so let us start the analysis. As I told you, I'll use the keywords there in order to analyze. For example, they have used bureaucratic. They've used bureaucratic literalness or bureaucratic literalism. So first I will analyze what is this bureaucratic literalism. The bureaucratic literalism means rigid adherence to rules. It is rigid adherence to rules. Bureaucratic literalism leads to tunneled vision. It leads to tunneled vision. Okay, that is, the bureaucrat will lack empathy. The bureaucrat will lack empathy and will mainly be target oriented. Will lack empathy and will mainly be target oriented. So that is one. The next is, it has such bureaucratic literalism will have inability. They will have inability to deal with special circumstances. Inability to deal with special circumstances. So this is what is bureaucratic literalism. And why do public administration as bureaucratic literalism? The reason is, the first and the major reason is the fear of accountability. Okay, the fear of accountability. That is, they don't want to use their discretionary powers for the good also, because they fear questioning by the upper authorities. The second is the culture of diffusion of responsibility. Diffusion of responsibility. Okay, the third major reason for this is the lack of courage. The lack of courage. Okay, as I told you, in one of the quotes we discussed the faith as well as the strength. You can use that itself. The lack of faith and the lack of strength. Okay, so these are the three reasons why bureaucratic literalism comes into picture. Now, illustration is basically when, let us say, there is an hospital in Bihar. This hospital lacked oxygen cylinders, and because there was no oxygen cylinders, it led to the death of many infants. Now, when the hospital authority was checked of why it did not have oxygen cylinders, they had written to the competent authority. That there was no oxygen cylinders, but they had not received any reply. So this shows bureaucratic literalism. Here, the hospital authority or the hospital administration lacked the empathy. It lacked the proactiveness to go one step ahead and to make sure that the oxygen cylinders are there to save lives in the hospital. They have just completed their procedure of writing to a competent authority and stopping there. They have done their job. So this has resulted in the loss of many innocent lives. This shows bureaucratic literalism. This is how ineffective administration can be, because of literalism or adherence to rigid rules, and this is the first approach. Okay, the second approach that the question talks is the purpose or intent based approach. The second approach is the purpose or intent based approach. So what is the purpose or intent based approach? Here also there is adherence to rules. You should not tell that there is no adherence to rules. There is adherence to rules. Alright. But here the administration is done with empathy. Okay. So the empathy plays a very important role in realizing the intent. Okay. The bureaucrats or the civil servants or the public servants will use the moral reasoning in order to make decisions. Okay, a very good illustration is the case study of Kerala floods. Okay, so in Kerala floods, the bureaucrats or the public servants, they had to procure essential items. And to procure essential items, they had to circumvent the procedure. They had to circumvent the procedure. They did not neglect, but they made sure that they do not follow the procedure so that it can quicken the process of procurement. It can quicken the process of procurement. And this quickening the process of procurement saved lives. Many lives. Now look, just because of empathy, you're realizing the purpose and the intent of the job, and that makes you to be proactive, and that makes you sometimes to go one step ahead of the rules to make sure that the lives are protected or the lives are saved. And this is a very good example. So the purpose or intent based approach is very important in public administration. It is very important in public administration. The reason is because rules cannot cover all scenarios. The rules cannot cover all scenarios. There will always be where there is gray area. Okay, there will always be gray areas. So in places where there are gray areas, there is always what you call as moral reasoning and moral behavior of the civil servants. And this moral reasoning and moral behavior of the civil servants can get activated only with the purpose or intent based approach. Hence, the bureaucrats must move beyond the bureaucratic literalism and always work with the spirit, with the purpose and with the intent of what their office that they occupy is for. So this is how I would like to write this answer. Okay, how I would like to conclude the answer is there should always be a balance between formalism and purpose. There should be a balance between the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. There should always be a balance between the rules and the intent. So this is how I would like to conclude. And this will make the public administration more effective and more purpose driven. Okay, so this is how I would like to conclude this answer. So I hope you enjoyed this. Let us now start with the question 5a. Let us first read what it is. The code of conduct and the code of ethics are the sources of guidance in public administration. There is a code of conduct already in operation, whereas the code of ethics is not yet put in place. Suggest a suitable model for the code of ethics to maintain integrity, probity, transparency in governance. Okay, so two parts. First, you have to talk about the code of conduct and code of ethics. Okay, now the code of conduct is put in place. The code of ethics is not yet put in place. So this is another dimension that you have to address. So 1 and 2 both almost are very similar, but don't forget you have to address both. The third is suggesting a model. You are going to suggest a model. Okay, so these are the three aspects that you are going to talk about here. So first, how will you start? Since there are two variables here, what are the two variables? One is the code of conduct, another is the code of ethics. So since there are two variables, in the introduction, talk with respect to the two variables. So basically how I will start is, code of ethics is a codification of values that guides the moral behavior or moral behavior or moral reasoning of public servants, whereas code of conduct is the codification of conduct rules that decides what you need to do and what you need to not do. See, it basically tells conduct rules, how you need to conduct yourself. Okay, so this guides physical behavior. The code of conduct is going to guide the physical behavior. So I will try to write the gist of what code of ethics is and what is code of conduct. So this is how I will start. Then I will give a diagram where I show that one is code of ethics and inside that one aspect is code of conduct. Look at this. So code of ethics and code of conduct are both interrelated, whereas code of ethics is all encompassing and it is broad, and code of conduct is one part of code of ethics. So this is how I will like to start. The next is I'd like to give the interrelationship between the code of conduct and code of ethics. Okay, I'd like to give the interrelationship between the code of conduct and code of ethics. Then I will say code of conduct is put in place but code of ethics is not, and how it is creating a problem. Okay, and then we will suggest the model. So don't forget the order in which the question has been given. You have to address all the dimensions. So the first is, as I told you, the analysis will be what is code of ethics and how is it different from code of conduct. Okay, as I told you, code of ethics is basically value based. Code of conduct is basically rule based. Okay, the next is code of ethics is prescriptive in nature. It is prescriptive in nature. Code of conduct is restrictive in nature. Restrictive in nature. So when I say restrictive, it will tell you what you have to do, what you should not do, do's and don'ts. This is what it tells. Prescriptive in nature is, this basically gives you a framework, a moral framework. So whatever you do, you should always abide or be in conformance with this moral framework. See, this is what is code of ethics. So code of ethics is broad, whereas code of conduct is very narrow. Code of ethics will be applied both in your professional life as well as personal life. Code of conduct will help only in your professional life. Code of ethics will cover the rules, the laws, the rules, the laws, as well as those areas not covered by laws. This is very, very important. It covers the rules, laws, and those areas that are not covered by laws. Whereas code of conduct will be, it only covers the laws as well as the rules. See, this is the difference between the code of ethics and code of conduct. So this is what is my first analysis. Now the second analysis comes, the code of conduct is in operation. The code of conduct is in operation means you have to talk a little bit about that. What is the code of conduct that is in operation? The code of conduct that is in operation speaks about having apolitical attitude, abiding by social norms, not accepting gifts. You have to make sure that you maintain the decorum of the office. Okay, so these are some of the code of conduct that are in operation in Indian civil services. Okay, now as you can see, this is the code of conduct, but the code of ethics is still not in operation. It is still not in operation. So if it is still not in operation, the major problem for this, because it is still not in operation, the major problem what happens is now civil servants will have a problem when they face ethical dilemma. When they face ethical dilemma, when they face conflict of interest, when they face crisis of conscience. Okay, when our civil servants face ethical dilemma, conflict of interest and crisis of conscience, this is where the code of ethics would have acted as a guideline or a framework. And because there is no code of ethics that is in operation today, this will create a problem for all our civil servants who are facing the ethical dilemma, who are facing the conflict of interest or the crisis of conscience. This is the very important aspect of the code of ethics that is not in operation in Indian civil services. So that is what you have to talk. The third dimension that they ask in the question is suggest a model to design the code of ethics. So here when you have to suggest a model to design the code of ethics, you have to be careful so that the code of ethics is all encompassing. Okay, that is, it should cover all dimensions of ethics. All dimensions of ethics. So how will I suggest a model? I've seen many discussions where they just give different values and go. That code of ethics should have integrity, code of ethics should have transparency, code of ethics should have accountability. See, that is wrong, because if you look at the question, see, I will show you the question here. The question only they are telling, suggest a suitable model for the code of ethics to maintain integrity, probity and transparency. See, they are only giving the value. So if you repeat the value, you will not get marks. Okay, so you should suggest a model that will encompasses integrity, that will encompass probity, that will encompass transparency. So how will the model be going to be? That is your creativity. How depth ethics shows here. Okay, so how I would like to suggest a model is, this model Basically, the model that I would like to suggest is, this model should have a balance between teleology and deontology. That is, both are important. See, our duty based ethics is also important. Our duty based ethics is also important, whereas the impact of our decision is also very important. So our model should always have a balance between teleology and deontology. Our model should always be very clear on the meta ethics. That is, when I say meta ethics, our civil servant should understand what integrity actually means, what probity actually means, and what transparency actually means. They have to understand the importance of this in the context of public administration. They should know how their decisions will have impact on millions of lives. So hence, meta ethics is also one aspect of the model that we would like to include in this. Okay. The next is the value inculcation. Okay, the value inculcation is very, very important. That is, how value inculcation can be done is, the values that is enshrined in our constitution must be explicitly, the values that are enshrined in our constitution must be explicitly listed in the code of ethics, so that there is no doubt at all. Okay, the values can be, now here the values can be the human-centric values. The values can be the human-centric values. The values can also be the, organizational values. The values can also be organizational values. So when I say human-centric values, it means empathy. It means compassion towards the weaker section. Okay. It means emotional intelligence. So when I say organizational values, it means accountability, it means transparency, and it means the efficiency and effectiveness. So these are organizational values. So this is the model that I would like to suggest. Basically, I am suggesting three aspects in the code of ethics. One is the balanced teleology with deontology. Another is the value inculcation. For value inculcation to happen, the values must be explicitly listed in the code of ethics. The third is value realization. Okay, so one, you are balancing teleology and deontology. The second, value inculcation by explicitly mentioning the list of values. The third is meta ethics, that is value realization. So these are the three-step model. This is a three-step model that I would like to suggest, that will help our code of ethics be very broad, and it will help. Okay, the code of ethics will help solve the ethical dilemma, the conflict of interest, as well as the crisis of conscience. So this is how I would like to end the answer. So this will be my conclusion. So I hope you enjoyed the answer. Very straightforward question. But when they say suggest the model, I have seen many discussions where they are just iterating the values. Please don't iterate the same values that they have given in the question itself. Okay, try to bring the model by bringing different dimensions of ethics that makes the code of ethics all encompassing, and will create a moral framework for the better decision making of the civil servants. That is what is the important aspect here. So this completes the question of the code of conduct and code of ethics of 5A. Alright, now let us look at 5B. Okay, the soul of the new law, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, is justice, equality and impartiality based on the Indian culture and ethos. Discuss this in the light of major shift from a doctrine of punishment to justice in the present judicial system. Okay, so here two aspects you have to talk about. They are talking about the two dimensions. One is Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, how it is in conformance with the Indian culture and ethos. So that is the first aspect that you have to talk. The second aspect that they are asking you is how the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita is moving from the doctrine of punishment. How it is moving from the doctrine of punishment towards the doctrine of justice. Okay, so these are the two aspects that you can talk about. One is the doctrine of punishment to doctrine of justice. The second is the Indian culture and ethos, how it is in conformance with the Indian culture and ethos. So these are the two things that you have to understand. Again, see, the question is applied ethics. Okay, but what the difficulty in this answering this question is, the question is very specific. So the question is asking about a very specific way of you to answer. So here, just by knowing what are the changes in the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita will not help you. You should arrange the points in such a way that it should suit the two demands. The first is it should suit how Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita will overlap with Indian culture and ethos, or is in conformance with Indian culture and ethos. That is the first dimension. So whatever points that you have in Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, try to segregate in two sections. Those sections, you write it in those part where BNS is in conformance with Indian culture and ethos, and some parts, whatever you can remember, that you should write it in where, the BNS is moving from the doctrine of punishment to doctrine of justice. So that smartness should be there. Okay, if you think that there is some specific answer for this that I have not read, then you are falling into the trap. You should try to make an answer. You should try to make an answer with what you have. Okay, the reason why I am telling you this is, this question, this Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, many people would have learned from the perspective of GS2. They wouldn't have expected this question to come in GS4. Now, since it has come in GS4, don't try to write entire GS2 points here. All you have to do is you have to be very smart. Okay, divide all the points that you have studied in GS2 into two parts and add one part in the first section, add the second part in the second section. The only thing you should change is the language. Make sure that you bring more ethical language to it. If you bring the ethical language, you will get the marks. That is the smartness. That is all that it takes. So you should not try to get overwhelmed that they are asking something very specific. The second, you would have studied this in your GS2. BNS is something that everyone would have studied in GS2. It is just that how you will apply that in GS4 matters. That is where you have to bring the slight hint of ethics into that point, and that itself will automatically make it GS4. Okay, so this is about the approach to this question. So this is how we can start our introduction. We can start by telling how our criminal justice system is having colonial legacy, and how the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita is the first step towards shedding the colonial legacies, and bringing our cultural ethos that are in conformance with justice, equality, as well as impartiality. This is how I would like to introduce. So I am trying to tell how our laws, our entire criminal justice system is shaped by the colonial policies, and even today this colonial legacy is left within our criminal justice system, and the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita is the first step towards cleansing our criminal justice system of this colonial tendencies or colonial legacies. So this is how I would like to start. Okay, the next is the first part. Let us completely jump to the first part. So the first part is how Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita upholds justice, equality and impartiality based on Indian culture and ethos. So they have asked this question. So this is how I would like to answer. The first I would like to talk about is justice. In justice, I would like to tell that the BNS is more to do with restorative justice. It is more to do with restorative justice. Restorative justice means there are two types of justice: restorative and retributive. Okay, restorative means you are trying to rehabilitate the prisoner. You are trying to reform the prisoner. Hence it is restorative. Okay, retributive is mainly focused on punishing the prisoner. It is basically avenging the crime done by the prisoner. Okay, so this is what is restorative justice. So our BNS is moving towards restorative justice. Hence it upholds our cultural ethos of justice. So this is one thing what I would like to tell. The second is I would like to talk about equality before the law. Equality before the law. Okay, when I say equality before the law, here I would like to talk about how the BNS is using gender neutral languages. It is using gender neutral languages that will reduce the tendencies of gender inequality. and it will bring more equality. See how I was able to use the terms given in the question itself to elaborate by matching the points that I know about the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. So the first point is about justice, so I spoke about restorative justice. The second point is about equality, so I was speaking about how gender neutral languages are used in this particular Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. And the third is impartiality. Okay, here I would like to tell Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita will be impartial to all sections of the society, to all individuals. However, it also upholds diversity. It also upholds diversity. Example is, there are several tribal laws that will be respected by the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Because the tribal laws are very sacred to those tribes, we don't want to hurt the sentiments of those tribes. These tribal laws will be respected by the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. See how we are being impartial. We are being impartial by respecting the diversity of our culture, diversity of our cultural ethos in Indian society. So this is how I would like to complete my first part. The second part of the question reads, how it is moving from the doctrine of punishment. It is moving from the doctrine of punishment to the doctrine of justice. Okay, here I would like to tell that the BNS is mainly focusing on victim-centric approach. When I say victim-centric approach, the victim will be given psychological support. You also have victim compensation scheme. You also have victim protection. So we are made sure that in that endeavor to get justice, the victim is not harassed, the victim will not suffer more pain than what they have initially suffered. So that is one of the very important aspect of how we are moving from the doctrine of punishment to the doctrine of justice. The second is, we have come up with several new ways of justice. New ways of justice. Okay, the new ways of justice is, the most important is community service. So basically, for all those people who have committed minor crimes, there is a place or there is a way called community service. So by doing community service, what happens is they develop a very important attribute, and that attribute is empathy. So they develop sentiments about the society, they'll try to understand the purpose of life, they'll try to see the pain of the others by doing this community sentencing, and in this way they will try to reform themselves and become better persons in the future. And hence this new way of justice is another important aspect of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Okay, the last one is, there is more emphasis on alternative dispute resolution. When I say alternative dispute resolution, there is more emphasis on mediation and arbitration. Mediation and arbitration. So basically we are focusing on reconciliation outside the system of criminal justice. Okay, so that they don't have to endure the time and the cost of fighting the case in the courts. So we should again reinforce that BNS is in conformance with Indian cultural ethos, as well as it has helped in shifting from the doctrine of punishment to doctrine of justice. Okay, now how will I like to conclude? The conclusion is as follows. BNS focuses on fairness, BNS focuses on equality, and BNS focuses on the restorative justice. It focuses on restorative justice. So these three will help in social integration of the victims as well as the accused, the victims as well as the convicts. It will help in the social integration of the convicts as well as the victims, and overall this helps in the coming about of social harmony. Okay, so this is how I would like to end my answer. Now in the entire answer, I hope you have learned how to use the same points that you have learned in GS2, but to bring it with the help of ethical vocabulary. Only by the use of ethical vocabulary, you will be able to write an answer that is in conformance with the language of ethics. You have to develop that habit. So I hope you are learning this. That is the reason I am doing this in so much of detail. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you learned the skill of bringing ethical vocabulary in applied form of ethics. So let us go on to the next question then. Let us now start with the 6A. The question number 6A. I'll read it out first. In Indian culture and value system, an equal opportunity has been provided irrespective of gender identity. The number of women in public service has been steadily increasing over the years. Examine the gender specific challenges faced by female public servants and suggest suitable measures to increase their efficiency in discharging their duties and maintaining high standards of probity. Okay, so first let us decide how many dimensions that this question demands. Okay, always what people will do is, most of the students what they do is, or most of the discussions that I have seen is, people will jump into two dimensions. One is the challenges. One is the challenges faced by women public servants. That is the first dimension. The second dimension they will go into is, they will start arguing about, or they will start suggesting suitable measures. They'll start suggesting suitable measures. So this is what they will jump. But what they are going to overlook is this first dimension. Okay, let me just show this. What they are going to overlook is this. So look at this. Why do you think UPSC has given this? They could have omitted this completely. They could have taken this off. They could have completely scratched this, and they could have just given the second half of the question. Why is it that they are putting the first half of the question there? The reason is, there is some thing that they want to observe. Again, that is the reason I keep telling you that ethics is a subject where you need to read the question very carefully, and you need to address all parts of the question. You need to address all parts of the question. Okay. Now see, in Indian culture and value system, equal opportunity has been provided irrespective of the gender identity. Now see, do you think it is completely true? Do you think that in the Indian value system, is there opportunity that is given? Is there that opportunity that is given irrespective of gender identity? Is this true? Now, if you identify that this is true, then if this is true, how is this happening then? Can you observe that there is complete dichotomy between the first statement and the second statement? If you don't address this dichotomy, that means that you have not understood the question at all. This is the problem what happens with most of the students, or most of the discussions that people teach in ethics is, they don't identify this inconsistency that is purposely put in the question. If you don't address this inconsistency, that means that you have not understood the question at all. This is the major problem. Okay. Now see, let us now look at and discuss how to exactly address this. So first is talk about the Indian value system and the gender identity within the Indian value system. Okay, you have to address that. Okay, so first I will try to address that, and then come to the challenges of women public servants, and then come to suggesting the remedies. So first is the Indian value system. The first is the Indian value system. So in the Indian value system, what is important is, you should talk how Indian value system is mainly patriarchal. So men will always have a higher position compared to women. Okay, however, in recent times, that is in our post-independent India, our society has undergone a lot of refinement. It has undergone a lot of refinement. For example, how? It has undergone a lot of refinement by bringing different laws against dowry. It has brought laws against domestic violence. Okay, it has brought laws in order to help the inheritance of women. It has brought laws to stop sexual harassment of women at workplace. Look at this. All these laws shows that our society is refining and it is moving towards gender equality. However, we have still not achieved gender equality perfectly, and there are places where we still have to improve, and one such place is public administration. And though we see the rising numbers of women in public service, the challenges we are seeing rising women in public services, there are several challenges they are facing. Now this completes the first part. You address the first part and now move on to the second part. Most people directly, what happens is, most people are going to jump only to these two dimensions. They are going to skip this entire aspect. You should always understand that this dichotomy that is given is given by purpose. They are trying to test how can you identify the inconsistencies or the divergence in the question. If you don't understand, that means you don't have that maturity or you don't have the depth in that ethics. This is what is ethics paper. That is why ethics paper is very different compared to all the other GS papers. It is not just about the content. It is not just about your answers. It is about how can you identify the different nuances that are there within the question. Okay, so anyways, so after addressing the first part, the second part of the question is normal. I know everyone would have written it, everyone would have written a very good answer. So the second part is the challenges. What are the challenges faced by women public servants? The same challenges all women face in their workplaces, the same challenges even they face. What is it? It is one, harassment at workplace. See, when we say harassment at workplace, it need not be only sexual harassment. It can be insensitive comments. It can be insensitive comments. Okay? Or it can be insensitive gestures. These are all harassment in workplace. Okay? The second is stereotyping and biases. Stereotyping and biases. This is mainly seen in women in uniform. Because it is said that uniform is very much confined to men, that stereotyping and bias is still there in the public service. So that is the second one. The third challenge is the work-life balance. Because in Indian society, we still see women as caretakers. So they have to finish their professional life, they have to come back to their private life and take care of the children as well as the elderly. So when this happens, when they have to balance both the private and the professional life, then the work-life balance actually becomes very much burdensome, and it becomes very much hectic. That is another challenge. The next is, they also have challenges with respect to networking. Okay, so see, networking is informal way of learning. This informal way of learning can happen at social gatherings, and women public servants are usually not invited to these social gatherings. Either it can be because of the fear from the recipient side, or it can be because of some type of bias or stereotyping. Whatever it is, when they are not invited to social gathering, they will lose out on the most important aspect of networking. Okay, and the next is, and the last is, inadequate support system. Okay, now this inadequate support system is mainly for those front line women bureaucrats. When I say frontline women bureaucrats, it means Group C and Group D service. These women will not have support systems. I know that the IAS officers or the IPS officers of women will have enormous amount of support systems, but women, especially in the frontline bureaucracy, that is especially from Group C and Group D, will not have a good support system. It can be support system from creche availabilities. It can be support system from flexible hours. It can be support system of leaves that are required when they face some problems within the family. So all these are problems that will not be, or all these are flexibilities that they will not have, especially those frontline bureaucratic women. So this is what are the challenges that the women, especially in the public service, face. So this is what are the challenges. Again, everyone is going to write this. I have no worries that you people will not write. So that is about the challenges. So how will you suggest the remedies? Okay, so suggest remedies in two ways. One, you should talk about the women in public service, and you should talk about the public service in general. In two ways you can suggest the remedies. So when you talk about the public service in general, you should talk about gender sensitization. Okay, you can give the example of Karnataka High Court judge. The Karnataka High Court judge, the Karnataka High Court judge commented very badly about women. Now see, a judge who is there in such a high position can comment so badly about women. Imagine what happens within the public service. So if the public service has to respect women, it has to appreciate the work of women, then obviously gender sensitization is the most important aspect that has to be done. So that is the first aspect. The second is there has to be the balance of, a balance of equity, equality and empowerment. Okay, in the public service there should be equity, there should be equality and empowerment. This is on the side of the public service. Now women in public service, how to encourage them is, one, giving them flexibility in their working hours. The second is giving them a proper support system they really want. Okay, the third is providing them with leadership roles or making them shadow leaders. When I say shadow leaders, they can follow the leaders. They can follow the leaders in order to learn from them. Okay, so these are the 3 steps on the side. One more aspect that I would like to add on the public service side is attitude conditioning. Attitude conditioning. The reason why I tell attitude conditioning is because in order to overcome stereotyping and biases, if they have to overcome stereotyping and biases, then attitude conditioning has to happen. Otherwise, that stereotype that women are confined only to these roles will always be there in the minds of every civil servant, especially the male aspect. So this is about the 2 things or the 2 different dimensions that I would like to bring in the remedies. So in this question, I hope you understood how UPSC will test by giving dichotomous statements within the same question. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have made a mark of this, and I know that you are going to implement this in the future exams. Now, what is the tricky part is, most of the institutes that will set questions for you in the mock test do not do this. They are not worried about these to test such nitty-gritties of yours. They are only there to give you the question and give you the synopsis. Okay, so the point is, you will not learn such things by practicing mock tests that are there outside. You have to practice it with UPSC papers, because UPSC papers are more than just an exam. They are trying to actually test your aptitude, your integrity, as well as your moral compass. So I hope you understood this. I hope this discussion is bringing some type of a change and orientation in how you prepare for ethics, and that is the main purpose of me doing this. So this is about this question. Let us move to the next question, the last question of ethics theory, that is 6b. Alright, let us now look at the 6b, the last question of ethics theory. The 6b is, Mission Karmayogi is aiming for maintaining a very high standard of conduct and behavior to ensure efficiency for serving citizens and in turn developing oneself. Okay, how will this scheme empower the civil servants in enhancing productive efficiency and delivering the services at the grassroots level? Okay, again, few keywords that you should know here is, 1, it helps in improving the efficiency of serving citizens. Okay, not only that, the second aspect that it helps is, it helps in developing oneself. Okay, so this is what is Mission Karmayogi, and this is what is given in the question itself. So the reason why I wrote these 2 points is, most of the people, what happens, they would know very superficial level. Very superficially you people know what is Mission Karmayogi. You wouldn't have gone with exactly what are its key features. Very less people would have gone into the key features, and this is a subject that is mainly confined to GS2. And you wouldn't have studied in GS3. So what happens, this mission Karmayogi, when they were asking in ethics, you people are getting shocked or you people are not able to write a proper answer. Don't get shocked. Okay, the first thing what you should understand is when the question is very, very specific, it becomes difficult. It becomes difficult to all aspirants. It becomes difficult to all aspirants. When it becomes difficult to all aspirants, the margins of scoring high marks, is very low. The margins of scoring high marks is very low. So don't worry about it. See, since this is a relative exam, everyone will write a generic answer. You will also end up writing a generic answer. So the questions which are actually difficult are not the questions that will decide your performance at all. So this is a question where you should have known the in and out of key features of Mission Karmayogi. I know that most of the students will know that Mission Karmayogi is basically a capacity building tool, which is a comprehensive and continuous learning system that helps in developing functional aspects of a civil servant, that helps in developing domain expertise of a civil servant, and also the personality development of a civil servant. So this is a superficial knowledge of everyone about Mission Karmayogi. What exactly are the key features? Very few people will know. So to write a very specific answer will obviously be difficult. So don't worry about writing a specific answer, but make sure that you do the justice. How will you do the justice? By understanding the hints that are given in the question itself. What are the hints given in the question? See, they are themselves telling Mission Karmayogi is solving two problems. One, it is helping improve the efficiency of serving citizens. The second is it will also help in developing oneself. Now, after giving the hint, so these are the two hints that are given by the question itself. The next is the demand of the question. The demand of the question is how will this scheme bring two things? The demand of the question is how will this scheme help in productive efficiency? How will it bring productive efficiency? And the second, how will it helps in delivering services at the grassroots? Look at this. So basically they have given you two hints, and basically they are also giving you two dimensions to answer. So all you have to do is use this hint in order to generate an answer here. If you can use that hint to generate 3 points here and 3 points here, your job is done. This is how you have to work smartly. I hope you understand how to follow ethics, how to write ethics answer, how to bring ethical vocabulary. This is what is ethics paper. A very, very interesting paper, provided that you are matured enough, provided that you have developed a very good grip in your ethical vocabulary. Ethics is not just writing answer in plain old simple English by just throwing integrity somewhere, faith somewhere, strength somewhere, courage somewhere. That is not about ethics. Ethics is truly internalizing the values and trying to write exactly what your personality is. It is an expression of your personality. Okay, the reason why I told you all this is, I know that many students would have written an average answer for this. It is okay if you have written the average answer. And I'm teaching you how to actually deduce the question and use the, hints in the question to write an answer here. Now, the next part is where I am going to write an answer because I have researched in the internet and I have made a model answer on my own. So whatever answer that I am going to teach you is only for teaching purposes. This is not how you write in the exam at all. Because in the exam, in that spur of the moment, you will not have such amount of details to write a well-laid answer, which I am going to write right now, because I had the time to research, you people did not. So don't put yourself in that situation that in the exam I have to write an answer like this. That is never going to happen. So put it out of your head. I am only going to write an answer as an indication of how this answer should be answered in an ideal scenario. That is how I am going to answer this. Okay, but overall I have taught you this is the framework how you should have written the answer in the exam, provided that you don't have the detailed information of the key features of Mission Karmayogi. You have only sufficient knowledge of what Mission Karmayogi is. So I hope you got that. Now let us move on to the exact model answer of how it should be. There I am going to bring in a lot of key features that I have researched and written it down, so you don't have to worry about it. Just learn about it, because in ethics if you learn about it, you can always use it in the future answers as well. Okay, so let us learn about it. So the first is, as I told you, the question is asking two demands. Okay, one is productive efficiency, another is delivering services to grassroots. So I will also address it in two ways. One is how Mission Karmayogi improves productive efficiency. Okay, so the first one, how it improves productive efficiency is it builds on capacity building. It is mainly building on capacity building. So it works on skills, it works on attitudes, it works on competencies. Okay, it works on competencies. Okay, so when it is working on skills, attitudes and competencies, this is necessary to address the challenges of 21st century. See, the skills, attitudes and competencies that are necessary to address the challenges of 21st century, that is what is being trained to the civil servants. Obviously, if they are trained with such modern skills and modern competencies, their productive efficiency is bound to increase. So that is the first point. The second point I would like to bring is competency framework. Competency framework. Okay, these are the necessary competencies that are needed in a civil servants. Now these competency frameworks are constantly evolving with the government needs as well as societal norms. Okay, so see, competency frameworks are created and these competency frameworks are dynamic in nature. So whatever competencies that they are going to teach you, it is not going to be a set of static framework, but it is very dynamic and it is going to evolve along with the societal norms as well as the government's needs. So that will actually improve the efficiency furthermore. So that is the second point. The third one is digital learning platform. The third is the digital learning platform. So you have got something called IGOT platform. So IGOT platform, it basically allows the civil servants. It basically allows the civil servants to continuously learn. Okay, so here it focuses on civil servants to always keep learning, always keep updating, always to know what are the changes that are happening in the society. So when they know and when they are aware of the changes, obviously their productive efficiency will increase furthermore. So that is the third point. And the last point I would like to bring in productive efficiency is annual capacity building plans. See, there is annual capacity building plans, that is all the departments must outline strategies. They must outline strategies for training and capacity building. They must outline the strategies for training and capacity building. So this has to happen annually. Okay, so these are the 4 points how Mission Karmayogi will help improve the productive efficiency of the civil servants. Okay, the next dimension that they have asked is how Mission Karmayogi will help delivering the service to the grassroots. Okay, how will it help in delivering the service to the grassroots? It will help, first one is through individual development plan. It helps in individual development plan. This is known as IDPs. So what is individual development plan? Individual development plan is based on personalized learning. It is based on personalized learning. This personalized learning is created by tailoring the learning to the needs of the locality. That is, let us say that individual is working in a region that is drought prone. Then the training will be given more on the basis of how to help in the drought prone. Let us say that region is highly prone to disasters. Then the civil servant will be given more training tailoring to the disaster management. See how the individual development plan will cater to the local places. So when it caters to the local places, now the civil servant is equipped with tools to address the specific needs. So here basically you are equipping the civil servants with tools that can address the specific needs. So I hope you understood how the first aspect will help in delivering the services to the grassroots. The next one, the second one is behavioral training. Behavioral training. Okay, this involves instilling ethics, innovation and accountability. Okay, so obviously when you instill ethics and values inside the civil servant, their behavior will be more consonant with moral reasoning, their behavior will be more consonant with their moral compass, and hence they will act with integrity, probity and transparency, and that will in turn help in the delivering of services to the grassroots. So that is the second point. The third and the last point, how it helps in the delivery of services, civil services competency atlas. Okay, civil services competency atlas. So what is an atlas? Atlas is mapping of required competencies at various levels of governance. So when required competencies at various levels of governance are identified, that is what is needed at the front line, what is needed at the intermediate, what is needed at the higher positions, if that every level, what is the competency that is needed can be identified, then obviously the delivery of services can be much more better. So this is how we can improve the productive efficiency as well as we can improve the delivery of services to the grassroots. Okay, so finally what we can tell is, by concluding, in the conclusion it tells that the mission Karmayogi focuses on two aspects of civil servants. It focuses on two aspects of civil servants. One, it focuses on making them a good civil servant. It focuses on making them a good civil servant, and two, it focuses on making them a good human being. Look at this. This is how you have to conclude in ethics. Obviously, you can conclude by telling Mission Karmayogi helps in continuous and comprehensive learning that will enhance the functional competency of the civil servant. You can do all these things in paper 2. But when it comes to ethics, see, this is how you have to give the conclusion. The conclusion should be value intensive. The conclusion should be human centric. Okay, and the conclusion should have ethical vocabulary. Okay, so this is how you have to conclude. So this completes the question of 6B. So we have completed comprehensively all the questions of ethical theories. I hope you have enjoyed it. I hope you are oriented of how to study for ethics, and more importantly, how to write ethics answers. That is very, very crucial. So these 6 different questions and their sub questions, I have discussed this elaboratively. Please look at it. Please make a note of it and practice the previous year questions of ethics, because as I told you, those subtle nonsense that you see in the ethics question of UPSC, you will not see in any mock test of any institutes. That is what is missing, and hence please practice whatever we have discussed elaboratively in your previous year questions. Alright, so now after listening to all these questions, let us summarize what are our learnings. Okay, the first learnings is there is a difference between GS answer and ethics answer, and I hope you understood how to write. Next, the questions will have hints, the questions will have keywords. So you should learn how to use these hints and keywords. Okay, the third is the most important aspect, the learning of using ethical vocabulary. If you cannot use ethical vocabulary, then you cannot write a proper ethical answer. The fourth aspect that is important is, in quotes, try to bring the you dimension as well as the present context. Okay, and the next dimension that you have learned in this year's ethics paper is the increasing emphasis on applied ethics. Now this is going to keep increasing. As you can see, you saw the question on artificial intelligence, you saw a question on climate change, you saw a question on Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, you saw a question on Mission Karmayogi. So you're going to see a lot of emphasis on applied ethics. And the sixth takeaway of the ending remarks is there is more emphasis on public service values, and there is more emphasis on public administration and ethics. So these are the 6 takeaways that we have discussed completely and comprehensively in all the questions, and we are also not only realized these things, one, you understood how to study ethics. Okay, you also learned how to answer ethics question and how to keep yourself oriented to ethics while writing answers. So I hope these are the three things also that you have done after looking at this discussions. If you have liked this discussion, it is very, very important that you people share this video with as many people as possible, because these are some things that are not told so openly and so freely. I have put in a lot of efforts to bring it to you people, to bring it to the open, and to make you identify the differences of what is happening outside with many of the discussions compared to this discussion. If you genuinely see the entire discussion of this video, you will understand how different ethics is, how many of the people who are discussing the ethical paper are making a mistake in interpreting the ethical questions, and how you have to approach the ethics answer. If you feel that this has made a difference, please, I request you to like, share and subscribe, and share this with all your friends and family so that the views increases, and that acts as an incentive for us to keep doing this on a regular basis, guys. Thank you so much for all the love and support. I'll come up with more such initiatives. Keep looking at these videos, keep learning, and keep making sure that you learn as well as you teach others as well. So please don't forget to share this video and like, share, and please comment what you felt about the video, what you felt about the questions, and any dimensions that you want to bring, anything that you want to add extra, please put it in the comment section so that we can take it, learn ourselves, and try to make ourselves better to help you out. So until then, I'll see you again, guys. Thank you so much for all the love and support. Bye.